Sean Finnegan, Bianca Ellis, and Sarah Boone. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $Leangie129 Cash App. Thank you all so much for joining me. Let's get down to business, okay? All righty. Hope you all are well. Stay hydrated out there. Court TV is the source. This is pertaining to Sarah Boone, everybody. Thank you so much, okay? At a hearing on Wednesday, Sarah Boone bemoaned the fact that she was unprepared to address motions as she looked ahead to what clothing options she will have at trial. Boone is charged with second-degree murder of her boyfriend, Jorge Torres Jr., who was found dead, zipped into a suitcase at the couple's home. After 8 attorneys withdrew from her case, Judge Michael Cranick ruled that Boone had forfeited her right to counsel, leaving her to represent herself pro se. One of the hurdles Boone faces as an incarcerated pro se defendant is trying to look at the evidence in her case. On Wednesday, Boone failed to convince Cranick to close a scheduled evidence viewing to the media. Boone complained to the judge that she felt unprepared, blaming the lack of internet access for not seeing briefs that had not been filed in her case. Jail officials who testified said pro se inmates are not given internet access. Wow, interesting. Boone urged Judge Cranick to close a scheduled evidence viewing in her case to the public, saying that the media is exploiting her case for ratings and publicity and that she has a right to privacy. The judge, however, ruled that Boone failed to meet the burden required to close the hearing. Prosecutors, however, offered Boone an alternative. Investigators will meet Boone at a law enforcement office to allow her to look at the evidence without the media present. Boone was warned she will not be allowed to handle any of the evidence, which can only be touched by crime scene investigators. Judge Cranick approved the plan, but kept the hearing scheduled for September 3rd in case it does not come to fruition. Very interesting. Though Boone walked into court wearing handcuffs chained to her waist, they were removed before the hearing to allow her to move freely, taking notes, and that was one of her complaints as well. She did not want to be handcuffed while in the courtroom. Let's see. It says, instead, she'll have leg shackles. She'll be placed in a stun cuff in the presence of the jury. On Wednesday, Judge Cranick asked Boone if she had given thought to what clothes she would like to wear during the trial. Boone said she wants to wear a skirt, over warnings from the judge that if she chooses that option, the jury will be able to see the cuff on her leg. If she chooses pants, the cuff will not be visible. So will she choose the skirt or the cuff? Will she care? We will see. Before leaving, Boone hand-filled a new motion with the court requesting money to pay for a neuropsychologist as part of her defense. While the state took no position on the filing, there will need to be a formal hearing on the issue because of Boone's pro se and indigent status. Judge Cranick said the hearing would be scheduled before the end of the week. So Sarah is now representing herself because of her wranglings and negative vibes, conversations with other attorneys that were appointed to her. So now she has to represent herself by law, and she's wanting to see evidence. She's not allowed to touch the evidence. She's not allowed internet access because of her status as being someone who has to represent herself in court. Very interesting information. She also didn't want to be shackled in court, so she was given, a little bit of restraint to move about. Her option is to wear a skirt per herself, but as the judge told her, if you wear a skirt, then the jury will see that you have a shackle on your ankle. So will she decide to go with pants? Or so you might want to say culottes or a skirt. Not to make light of what happened to this man, but let's keep it real. This is just some buffoonery here, okay? Because this woman just refuses to understand the legalities of what she has done, okay? You talked this man into a suitcase. He stupidly obliged you to play hide and go seek. Who the hell plays hide and go seek at this age? 40-ish years of age, playing hide and go seek, and then you're playing hide and go seek in a suitcase, okay? It's one thing to be an adult playing hide and go seek in your home or outside. Okay, they're quirky, but we're not hiding in a suitcase. We're not hiding in tubs, barrels, suitcases, pine boxes. You see where I'm going with this. This is something a fool would do. Now, he's known to have been an alcoholic, drug addict, so perhaps he wasn't in his right frame of mind. She also said they had been drinking that night. So let's say he was under the influence and he just didn't give a damn. Okay, I'm going to go play along with her. I'm going to go crawl in the suitcase. He was a smaller framed guy. He didn't have a lot of weight on him, so he could fit in the suitcase, obviously. We see her filming, they're talking, and she turns on him while he's in this suitcase. This is buffoonery to me, craziness. There's really no appropriate word to use for anyone willingly choosing to get inside of a suitcase, okay? We're not talking about children. This would be horrific if it was kids playing, goofing off, and one leaves the other child in the suitcase and never notifies anybody that a child's in the suitcase, okay? This would be just as horrific. But these are adults. So an adult should have a better mind frame, a sense of self, a sense of common sense versus children playing in a suitcase. And even if you were teenagers, you would know better. But we do have teenagers who would do something foolish like this. You have some who would be young adults who would be foolish to crawl inside of a suitcase. So you got to know, what's that word? Adage, your company. Beware of the company you keep. Because maybe he didn't think. He was drunk, high, crawling in his suitcase. She's going to make sure I don't get out of here. Okay, I can't breathe. Okay, joke's over. Okay, fun's over. I'm ready to get out of here. And she's like, boo-boo, stay right there. I got you right where I want you. This was a foolish game. And the old saying, childish games, you win foolish prizes. Well, he won a fatal prize. His prize was death. This is some baffling information. Now, because she is so stubborn, set in her own ways, she now has no attorney because she could never go toe-to-toe. Well, she went toe-to-toe, but she couldn't get on an even slope playing field with her attorneys to say, I best just go on and let them try to defend me. And naturally, you have every right to say, no, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want that said. No, I don't want that as my defense. But see what sealed her fate was her filming him in the suitcase. That makes a person think this was deliberate. But then the flip side is he was an adult. She didn't put a child in there. You understand what I'm saying? She didn't film herself putting a child into the suitcase. He was a legal adult who should have known not to crawl in there, rather inebriated or not. You got to own what you do, okay? Because we can't blame alcohol, drugs on everything. Oh, well, he was on drugs, she was on drugs, she was high, she was drunk. Okay, well, he had done some foolish things anyway, staying in trouble with the law as an addict. But somebody might have said, damn, he ain't having no sense not to crawl his tail into a suitcase. But he did. And he paid the ultimate price. He suffocated to death. And she watched. And she left him there. Don't know if he was already going into transition to death before she went upstairs or wherever she went. But she knew what she was doing. I'm going to pay him back for everything he did, said to me. And she let that be known in the audio. That's what messed her up, is when she filmed it. Foolishly, she filmed it. And even if she had erased the video, they still would have found the video because nothing disappears off your phone. Your searches, things like that, they can go dig in the belly of the beast, these tech-savvy people, and find mischievous things on your phone. So she was a fool. She was a fool to do this because in the end, you still got to carry the weight of knowing you never went to retrieve him out of the suitcase, whether she filmed it or not. But then she filmed it, so that added another burden. So she's walking around now carrying that weight of knowing she got him in that suitcase. He stupidly went. He died. She walked off, went and did her thing. Then next day came back and played possum and called 911. And then she has the audio video to show she didn't care. And so all this putting on she's doing in court, this whining and moaning and falling out with lawyers is a waste of taxpayers' money. And it's also a waste of her time. But that's all she has is time, because she's facing a lot of time incarcerated down there in Florida for this deviant act. And that's what we have right now. Just a very wicked, wicked story of a woman who became unhinged, dealing with this man. Bianca Ellis. Let's see what we have on Miss Bianca Ellis. 3-part live, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Bianca Ellis has gone to court as well. African-American female who's accused of stabbing a woman and her child in an Ohio parking lot of a grocery store. And the son perished, toddler boy, Caucasian, mother and son. We're going to go into the belly of the beast. Hey, JR, thank you for joining me, sweetheart. We're going to go in the belly of the beast of that case. Knocking out court cases. I said I'm not going to do just one live on Mr. Finnegan. I'll go ahead and throw their information in as well, since they have attended court. A lot of nonsense. Hope you all are well out there. Thank you for joining me. Please follow the Queen on the Newsbreak app. I appreciate the support. Thank you so much. And go to my community page if you need updates and polls. I have a poll up pertaining to this Finnegan trial, so I want you all to take the poll. So far, only a few people have voted. All right. WKYC is the next source pertaining to Bianca Ellis. She has attended court, and it's pertaining to a mental evaluation of her mental capacity and state.
All right, we're here this morning, case number 692-604, Bianca Ellis is present in court. Good morning, Ms. Ellis. Ms. Ellis, we're here this morning after the court received the in-camera report regarding the competency to stand trial report. Based upon the findings of the forensic psychiatrist, I'll place on the record their finding. Their finding is a recommendation that you be referred, ma'am, for an up to 20-day inpatient competency assessment at North Coast Behavioral Health Care. And that's pursuant to the Ohio Revised Code Section 2945.371A. Specifically, a fuller determination about her competency to stand trial may be made in a more lengthy evaluation with 24-hour observation. And following the recommendation of the psychiatrist, the forensic psychiatrist, the court is going to first ask of the parties. I provided my staff a copy of the report to each of you under seal as well. So Ms. Moralia and Ms. Mateo, who are here on behalf of the state of Ohio, have you reviewed that report and you stipulate to the findings?
We have reviewed the report, Your Honor, and we stipulate to the recommendation of the doctor.
All right, thank you. And then Mr. Mack and Mr. Johnson here on behalf of Ms. Ellis, I know I've provided you that report, and I'll ask if you stipulate to the recommendations of the forensic psychiatrist.
Judge, we have reviewed the report. We're stipulating that Ms. Ellis be referred to North Coast Behavioral for restoration, rather than further determination of our competency to stand trial. We ultimately achieve the same purpose, but we already believe that's
Yes, understanding that your report that you discussed on the record briefly last time we were here is the position that you take with respect to your client. I think the additional report that the state of Ohio has asked and that I ordered are not able to make that finding as of now and is asking for the additional time. Assuming the additional time would be such that the next step would be restoration of competency, we'll wait to see what North Coast provides to this court regarding that. And understanding that's the position of both you and Mr. Johnson regarding Ms. Ellis and your client here today. I'll note this. I know there's a 3 to 4 week backlog as far as taking new patients at North Coast and then allowing for the 20-day rehab or the 20-day observation of Ms. Ellis I'm gonna set this, I think I'd like to set it 60 days out. I think that will give us an opportunity to get a report back from North Coast. If it's something that we receive earlier, I'll speak to my journal entry about setting it on the record. But what I'd like to do is set 60 days out, I'll ask my bailiff to give us a date, and I'll make that just an attorney conference. Ms. Ellis will not be brought up for that hearing. And that'll be just an opportunity for us to convene and know possibly where we're at as far as that evaluation. Assuming we do get the evaluation before that, my bailiff will contact you and we'll make sure that we come here to the record to have that opportunity to discuss their findings at that time. And then additionally, in speaking with, or at least knowing what North Coast is probably going to want, I'm going to allow North Coast to have a copy of this report under seal. And then Mr. Mack and Mr. Johnson, I'm going to ask if you would consider, based upon your representation of Ms. Ellis, whether you would also allow, I'm going to assume that they're going to want a copy of your report so that they have a full understanding of both psychiatrists' evaluations, as well as all the information provided to each of them. And if that's something that you're willing to do, I'll ask that you at least let my bailiff know that, so that I could ask that you file it under seal, and then I would respond by providing it to North Coast under seal, and allow them to have that for their own input. So I'll ask that you consider that as well.
Yes, sir.
Very good. A date? October 15th. We'll set that for an attorney conference only, unless I have a report sooner than that.
October 15th.
I'll ask the lawyers to appear with client present as well. Does that work with the state for that date?
I'm checking right
Sure.
now, Aaron.
We'll do that at 9 o'clock, unless your trial's.
That's a Thursday, that's fine.
Why don't we just set it at 8? It's a Tuesday, the 15th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're already in 2025. Why don't we set it at 8:30? I know your trial
Yeah,
calendars,
that's fine.
knowing what may happen on your calendars, maybe at 8:30 before you get up to another court, might be easier. And then anything further from the state?
And no
No, Your
emotion
Honor, I just want to make it
from
very
her.
clear that though the defense is mentioned restoration, this by no means is restoration. This is just to determine competency at this stage of the game, and that is what has been determined by the court psychiatric clinic.
Judge, I think what I've said is that our experts determined that he's competent, but the state needs more time to do more psychiatric work to make further determination.
No, your expert has made a determination that has not been shared with the state. So the state cannot agree to anything other than.
Okay, let's stop right there. This is a problem. So the defense is speaking that their psychiatrist deems her incompetent, and now the state is saying, well, you haven't shared that information with us. So I don't understand why the defense would not have shared that. That's something you should be running out of breath to give to them as, information. Okay, here's an assessment by our team, our psychiatrist or whoever, and they believe that she's incompetent. She can't stand trial at the moment. So what I'd like to know from the defense, why did you not give up that information when you got the assessments from the psychiatrist that you used? So now we have the state needing more time to have her evaluated. So that's what's being discussed here. She's going to go somewhere or have somebody check her in, 20-day assessment, and then we come back to see what that forensic psychiatrist has to say about her, if she's competent or not competent. Weigh in. What do you think? What you're seeing of her in court, her demeanor, her actions, grinning in court when she first attended court, first hearing. Is this lady competent? Is she aware of her faculties? When she was apprehended, she was on a public street, wheeling herself around in a little wheelchair, but yet earlier she was pushing that same wheelchair into the police station to see about getting her effects that she said they stole from her. So she knows how to get around. She knows how to push that little wheelchair around, sitting it 1 minute, then push it around the next minute. the day of the stabbing, murder of the boy child and the mother, she steals the knife from the store, thrift store, but she walks by all these people, black, white, Hispanic, whomever. She doesn't stab anybody in the place where she steals the knife, but she walks out of that store, goes into another store, grocery store, walks past the white lady and her child, and then doubles right back like she knew them. That's how, but if she's mentally ill, you don't know what her mind was telling her. But it was something about that lady and that kid, that lady pushing her kid in that buggy on that fateful afternoon. She followed him out of the store and then stabbed the lady, stabbed her child, and the child passed away. Very baffling information. So that's what's being discussed here. Is she competent, not competent? They'll meet back in October, and you hear now the state saying, hey, you haven't given us the information from your psychiatrist to say she's incompetent. Let's finish that. Thank you.
Than what has been named in court by this judge, ordering that this defendant go to North Coast to be determined whether or not she is competent.
It's got
Very good. Both parties accepting the recommendation. I'm going to order her to North Coast.
So they're both accepting.
Again, knowing that there's a wait time, we'll notify the internal liaison here so that we can get some update. Once my bailiff is able to have that update, I'll make sure she provides that to all parties. Anything further for defense? Yeah, thanks everyone for being timely. I apologize for the delay that it took for Ms. Ellis to appear. So, all right, we'll adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's the end of that. Bianca Ellis. Let's go down and read a little more information pertaining to what was said, so you all will have that information. Thank you for joining me. Welcome to the voting cell. Subject matter number 2, everybody. Just discussed Sarah Boone. She's representing herself. 33-year-old Bianca Ellis, the woman accused of killing 3-year-old Julian Wood in a double stabbing outside of a Giant Eagle in North Olmsted, Ohio, was back in Cuyahoga County Common Pleas Court Tuesday morning, where Judge John J. Russo revealed the recommendation for a forensic psychiatrist regarding her competency to stand trial. Their finding is a recommendation that you be referred, ma'am, for an up to 20-day inpatient and competency assessment at Norcoast Behavioral Healthcare, Judge Russo announced. Specifically, a fuller determination about her competency to stand trial may be made in a more lengthy evaluation within a 24-hour observation. This determination came after a competency hearing was ordered for Ellis back on July 16th. Judge Russo, who noted there's a 3 to 4 week backlog for Norcoast taking new patients, also scheduled an attorney conference for 8:30 a.m. October 15th to discuss the findings should they be complete by that date. Ellis sat quietly throughout the hearing, only saying, "Hello, beautiful," while looking toward the back of the courtroom once the proceedings wrapped. So who was that she spoke to? I have no idea. Maybe it's a family member. Oh, Lord. There's something really wrong with this young lady. Totally wrong. Yeah, her family. 3 Black women were sitting in the courtroom. Looked like they were. Obviously, there are people who know her, probably mother, family. This has to be disturbing to see your loved ones sitting in court fighting for their life because they've stabbed a child, attempted murder of a mother and stabbed a child to death, a toddler child. So what are we going to find out about Miss Ellis? That she's been suffering from a mental disorder? Is she schizophrenic? What is her ailment? How long has she been sick? How long has she been, what's her diagnosis? How long was she ill? What was the recommendation? If she is mentally ill, living on her own. I don't think she was really staying in the place where she was living. So maybe she was just wandering about the streets of Ohio. See, this is bad. That's what a lot of people don't seem to understand about mental illness. If she's mental, like so many people, they're just out here wandering around and they need care. They really need 24-hour care. They don't need to be alone. They don't need to be living on their own. And a lot of people just refuse to understand that. There are a lot of people out here. They have a key to a whole house, apartment, trailer, shed, whatever. They don't need to be on their own. They can't function. They cannot mentally function. One day they're talking fine, the next minute they're talking to the wall, the refrigerator, the TV's talking to them, and the next thing you know, they're out here doing crazy, outlandish stuff like running around with hatchets, knives, stabbing people, grabbing guns, accusing people of doing stuff, stealing from them, all type of crazy stuff. See, because they don't need to be on their own. And I got a feeling this lady may fit that criteria. I could be wrong, but she may be one of those people that fit that criteria. She had no business being on her own, but this is what's going on in the United States. They don't have anywhere to house mentally ill people. They don't have state hospitals anymore. Local mental facilities to house a person 24/7. Staff not qualified, fighting, stabbings, altercations with staff and patients. Next thing you know, there's lawsuits now. There's no more hospital. We have a lot of people out here, regular civilians, citizens. Some are veterans. That's another issue we have. They are mentally ill. They have no business on their own, but there's nowhere to house them. So they're walking amongst everybody. And some of the people walking around you, you think they're half, sober, lucid, but really they're not. They're mentally ill. And the one thing we've learned about schizophrenia, most people are diagnosed later in life. Later, not 10, not 12, not 15, not 20, but later, 30s, 40s, 50s. Oh, let's get them diagnosed with something going on. They're acting out. Then somebody comes back with a diagnosis. Oh, they're schizophrenic. They've been walking around people all this time, and nobody even knew that they were ill and were hearing voices. Some people just, shucked it off like, oh, he's crazy, she's crazy, don't pay her no mind. Oh, she's always talking to herself. She's a little cuckoo. But should they be walking around you? Because this is what you have right now is a lot of people out here walking around about to pop off. And we got people who may not have a mental disorder and they're about to pop off. So we're talking about fragile brains walking around here. And as they say, anybody could end up a news story, break the law. Okay? It's just the way it is. Hello, everybody in the chat. Thank you for joining me. All right. So October 15th, State Defense will meet back to see if she has completed the assessment and what the psychiatrist has rendered Bianca Ellis. The topic of the hour, Mr. Sean Finnegan. He's standing trial for the murder of Jennifer Paxton in Clinton, Tennessee. Please go to my community page to check out my video I uploaded a few years ago where I go to the scene of the crime and show you the house, the fourplex, where he was residing with his mother, Frances, and Rebecca Dishman. We learned in court yesterday that she told a mahogany a few times that Miss Paxton was in the freezer. Is that true? Will we hear from mahogany to tell us, yes, I was told this and I didn't do due diligence to notify authorities when she first told me? Or is she going to tell us, well, she only told me the one time, and that's the same day I alerted authorities that allegedly there was a woman in the freezer. Police go and eventually find Miss Paxton under the bed, thawing out in a trash bag. We learned today the state of the body. Officer goes up there, Mr. Marvell. Had the pleasure of meeting him once. As I said, this is a small area. A lot of people know of each other. We all cross paths at some point or another in these small communities. He found her. So we're going to chop up what was found, the state of the body. A few people testified. A lot of law officials testified today. A co-worker of Mr. Finnegan's testified today from the Pint House. Oh, the Pint House, you should know I'm coming for you because I don't have nothing good to say about y'all either, because I find it interesting that when all this mess jumped off, we never even heard that he worked at the Pint House. So just imagine people now finding out he worked there and I was eating there. I want you all to think about that, because we all take for granted eating out, okay? We all take for granted going to McDonald's, O'Charlie's, certain venues to eat, restaurants, food trucks. You have no idea what's in the kitchen. You have no idea who's making the food, prepping the food, touching the food. And now you hear this story. and he was touching people's food, hamburgers, fries, vegetables. Now you know the short time you were eating there, however long he was working there as a cook. He was also going home, self-gratifying himself on a corpse, cut a corpse after death, urinating and defecating on Miss Rebecca, if you believe her version of these allegations against him. I think she's telling the truth. I think she's telling the truth because this is too far-fetched to make this up. And what the police officer said in court of her demeanor at the time of interrogating her back in August of 2020 pertaining to the death of Miss Paxton is the same demeanor you see her in court. That has not changed. Now, I don't know what version she gave law officials because I'd like to hear more about that. The version she gave, they're saying she told different versions. What were they pertaining to exactly? Let's get down to business, everybody. Subject number 3, Sean Finnegan. I'm going to go read you a little bit of information about Mr. Sean, and then we'll play a little audio. Thank you for joining me. Please check out my content on the Community Post and Newsbreak app. Hope everybody's well. Boy, this is a mess right here if I ever heard. Lord have mercy. This is just a hot butter mess. Just listening today, just when I think I can't be more, what's the word I'm looking for? Sick to my stomach listening. It's just scary. Just so scary. News Nation is the source, everybody. We're on we just came out of day 2 of trial. This is in Clinton, Tennessee. The trial for Sean Finnegan, who was suspected of killing a woman, has finished its second day and is set to begin again on Thursday at 9 a.m. The case saw several witnesses take the stand to shed light on those involved in the gruesome murder of Jennifer Paxton in late 2019. The 36-year-old's body was not found until August 2020 when Finnegan's... Hold on one second. It's got a lot of stuff jumping up here. Wait one second. When Finnegan's girlfriend at the time, Rebecca Dishman, left the home to be taken to a shelter outside of town, Paxton's body was said to be in a freezer in the closet of Finnegan's bedroom. Her body was later discovered underneath Finnegan's bed after he was asked about the body in the freezer. In court on Wednesday, which is today, more than half a dozen witnesses took the stand, ranging from neighbors to law enforcement officers. Kelsey Coons lived in an apartment to the side of the Finnegans. She took the stand on Tuesday as well. While on the stand, she was asked if she knew Finnegan or Rebecca Dishman, and she explained that the relationship between them was more of a general pleasantries in passing. She also recounted a discussion she had with Dishman. That's Rebecca. She was just talking about how she was scared of Sean, scared she was going to kill her. She was going to kill her. I think they mean to say he. She wanted to use my phone to make a fake Facebook profile to try to find a way to get away from him, said Coons. Also on the stand was Colt Peacock, who lived directly behind Finnegan's apartment. During his testimony, he shared that he called the police after his wife, Mahogany Peacock, drove Dishman from Oak Ridge to La Follette so she could go to a women's shelter. Colt Peacock said he had interacted with Dishman a few times, and this is what he said about her demeanor. She was simple, kid-like, Colt Peacock said. She dressed kid-like. She would be excited about stuff my kids would be excited about. She was just very simple. Colt Peacock added that Finnegan had threatened to kill him after Mahogany Peacock took Dishman to Claiborne County. He spoke with the police after the incident happened. When officers arrived at the apartments, Finnegan came to the front of Peacock's apartment to confront him and speak to the police. And you will hear that audio played in the court proceedings that took place today. Officers from the Anderson County Sheriff's Office and Oak Ridge Police Department also detail how they were involved in this case. For the ACSO, they merely took Dishman from Clinton to Oak Ridge on the day police were called, while the ORPD officers conducted the investigation, collected evidence, took pictures of the crime scene. That also is what was mentioned in court. You have Officer Craig detailing what he saw from the front door in upstairs and what the house looked like and the state of the house, you know, the door jam where they, I guess, busted into the warrant and everything. All that was discussed in court today. Alan Moore, a lieutenant with the ORPD, told jurors his reaction to finding the body of Jennifer Paxton. It was cold. I know it was a plastic bag and it was sold. I jumped up. It caught me by surprise. I mean, I wouldn't expect him to find, you know, the body under therein in that manner. I was startled, to say the least, said Moore. And when you look down at her body, when the bed was finally removed, could you tell? Was she intact? Asked her attorney. She was intact, but her nose was missing, said Moore. He continued saying he relayed the information to his supervisors about what he had just found. After that, ORPD secured the apartment and marked it as a crime scene. The following witnesses also worked with the police department, and he served as the crime scene photographer for this case. He took jurors in the court frame by frame of the pictures he took and evidence that was collected, and that was Officer Craig who did that in court. Okay. Now, yesterday in court, Dishman jumped on about 1 o'clock, and she gave her rendering of her relationship, how she met Mr. Finnegan, and what happened in her short stay. Well, it wasn't a short stay. She stayed quite a while, but this her duration of what a relationship was like, and meeting Miss Jennifer, and what happened the day that Miss Jennifer perished, in the days leading up to her death. She moved in with Finnegan 2 weeks after meeting him and started the relationship. It was good. They met on Facebook. Prosecution described the relationship between Finnegan and Dishman as a master-servant relationship. Finnegan was in charge. Dishman did whatever he said. And you heard her talk about that in court yesterday, that she didn't fight anything, because when Jennifer came in, she said, hey, this is his house. Whatever he say, go. What was I supposed to say about her bringing another woman in? But she did say she was shocked and wasn't expecting her. So whether they had threesomes or not, those are the allegations from the defense. I don't really know. But she said in court yesterday, I didn't know nothing about her, never met her, and did not know she was coming to this house. But when you listen to the testimony from the friend from work, co-worker, the young lady who testified today, she said he talked about the two women being there and taking care of his mother. But Jennifer was going to have to go. And that's the one he murdered. So now you're starting to wonder, how long was she actually at the house? I'd like verification, if they could ever be discovered. How long was Jennifer at this home with Sean, Rebecca, and his mother, Frances? And I have a bone to pick with Miss Frances. I don't know how old she is. I don't know if she's alive right now. But this talk about her being in hospice and all that, she knew how to talk crazy to the police. That was mentioned in court today. She was combative when they came in with the search warrant. And she basically was saying, well, oh, is this all over just a little, some weed? No, heifer, it ain't about no weed. It's about a whole dead person in your house, feet away in a freezer in your son's closet. And nobody can tell me Frances heard everything that went on. There's no way Frances did not know that Jennifer was there staying, that they had an altercation, that he beat her with a bat, that he fought her up in that room, tied her up in that room. She hadn't heard conversations even between all three of them in that room. The sexual escapades, all the things he was doing to them sexually. You want me to believe the mother didn't hear none of that? I don't believe that. No. During Dishman's testimony, she detailed, this was yesterday, what Finnegan had done to Paxton after bringing her home. She recalled Finnegan asking her if she wanted to kidnap Paxton while she was in the shower. Dishman was told to go upstairs. At one point that day, as Finnegan and Paxton began arguing. So what you have to ask yourself, the version that she spun, the girl comes in, Jennifer, didn't know she was coming. She was putting up a bed. I don't know what that's all about. Putting up a bed, what do you mean putting up a bed? Y'all didn't have a bed? Was the bed on the floor? What are we talking about? But we learned the girl was shackled to the bed. So the defense state, you won't need to ask more questions. You just let somebody get on the witness stand and just say, oh, I was putting up a bed and she showed up. Putting up a bed how? What do you mean putting up a bed? Ask questions so people will understand what people were saying. Because now, when you hear all the evidence that was recovered at the scene, you know, padlocks, dog collars, all this type of stuff, you got to ask yourself, did he buy all this stuff to kidnap a woman in that house? Because we learned he didn't treat Miss Paxton well, obviously, and he didn't treat Rebecca well. And see, Rebecca should have mistreated me 2 weeks into me moving in here. Then he goes and gets this other woman and bring her in and enslave her, abuse her and kill her. I'm right here going along for the ride. He could do the same to me. So she was a fool to stay with him damn near a year. And she, obviously, as you hear eyewitness here say, she acts childlike. She gets excited over childlike things. So does she have a mental problem? What's her highest grade of school? High school, I think. Is there something mentally wrong with her? Take the poll on my community page. Because you hear a witness here saying she acted childlike. Got excited over things that I guess adult wouldn't be getting excited over. So I believe that's possibly why she was easily coerced by Mr. Finnegan. Because she had a child demeanor, childlike mindset. And more than likely, she still has a childlike mindset. Because she also admitted in court yesterday that she still loves him. She loved him and she still loves him. And after what she said in court, many are going to question her mental state. How can you love somebody who abused you, number one, mentally, physically, probably verbally, and then he was defecating on you, urinating on you, putting a dog collar around your throat, and also having you walk on your knees and hands as a dog. Defecated and urinated on her. Are you hearing what I'm saying? And then what you all did to Miss Paxton, whether you want to own your part or not, or what you did or didn't do, many people are not going to care if she didn't do anything to Miss Paxton or not. You rode the ride and you never called 911. So you're guilty in the eyes of many people. I'm sure majority of human beings will say, well, she may have a slow mentality. She may not have proper education. She may not know right from wrong, but too bad she was there and at some point she knew this was wrong because she admits that in court as well. She did feel bad for Jennifer Paxton, but she didn't have the tools to take the lock off to unlock her while tied to the bed. But you can always dial 911. You could have ran to a neighbor to say, hey, I got to use your phone. There's an emergency. This is what's going on over here. Here we go. So Finnegan is arguing with Miss Paxton downstairs. Dishman said she came back downstairs and saw Finnegan with a baseball bat and Paxton defending herself with a fire screen. After striking Paxton with the bat, Finnegan told Dishman to clean up the blood on the floor. This is yesterday's testimony. See, this is where the Queen has a problem with this type of information. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Mentally inept, mental disorder, disease, whatever Rebecca had going on up here, she still had empathy for the woman, but didn't do enough to free her. They're fighting out here in a floor. You're witnessing this. The woman is defending herself with a fire screen, and you do nothing. You don't run to jump on him. Stop, leave her alone. This is wrong. Go on, lady, get out of here. Hell, run behind her. How about both of you run together? How about both of you tag teaming and whooping his tail? No way you can say you was in love with this man a few months into staying in his house. You loved him this much, you would watch him mistreat you, bring in a stranger, mistreat her, kill her, fornicate with her after death, cut on her body after death, cut on her body in the freezer, and allegedly, you also told in court he was ejaculating to this corpse in a freezer. You caught him. You came into the room and saw him ejaculating to a corpse, a frozen corpse. Are you all hearing what I'm saying? So we as humans listening to the story have to say, how far do you go in saying you care for someone? Because this is diabolical stuff. Where do you draw the line in saying you care for a human being? illegal activity, going along with it, being involved in it, witnessing them do ugly, heinous things to other people, such as what allegedly happened in this house. Not standing up for the person, not standing up for self, not standing up for the children. How far do you go? But then she also has allegations of child molestation herself, child rape. This is bad. Really, there's no word for what has been said about her and him. They're also mentioning she slipped up to say somebody's criminal record. One of the reasons why she left him because a neighbor told her he had criminal records, and they tried to scratch that. His lawyer kept saying, well, I can't go forward. We need a mistrial because now the jury's heard it. I can't undo what they heard. But the judge said, well, I'll have a talk with them, which he did. And he told them to forget about what she slipped up and said about why she was leaving. It's because she heard that he had a criminal record. So the state was basically saying, well, I was trying to talk about her reasonings for leaving, not that he had a criminal record. But my thing is, it should have been mentioned anyway. Why not? Why not mention he had a criminal record? Whether he had something to do with the case or not, or similarities, some people would want to know that he had weapon charges and drug charges. He's a known drug offender. Although we found that out at the beginning of the trial yesterday, but you can deduct what you want from it, that he was drug-induced, she was drug-induced, the girl that came was drug-induced. There's no reason for this type of behavior. I don't care if a person was using drugs or not. It didn't have to go to the extent that it went to. The torturing, chaining her up, and murdering her. You're not going to make me believe you were using drugs, that's the reason for doing this. Because what some of you don't know, he kidnapped a woman before. He wasn't prosecuted for that crime. So you're going to use that same excuse? Oh, he was drug-induced. He was drug-induced. That's why he kidnapped that last lady. So you don't know how many times he's done this. And you can best believe you don't wake up at 50 years of age kidnapping women and torturing them. You've been doing this. But you wanted to make sure this time the person didn't escape. Because what is the old saying, a dead man tells no tales? Exactly. But a tale can be told if you have a cohort, which is Miss Rebecca Dishman. And that's where he messed up. He had an eyewitness who waited almost a year before confessing and telling, or allegedly she did tell that Mahogany girl, but she didn't ever go tell. Don't know how true that is. She told her more than once, but that's going to be baffling if we find out Mahogany admits to, oh yes, she did tell me a few times, but I didn't believe her. Then somebody will say, well, what made you believe her on this fateful day in August 2020 that she was telling the truth? You didn't believe her before, then why would you believe her now? So what's the truth, Mahogany? Did Rebecca tell you that a dead woman was in that damn freezer in that apartment? And you just shucked it off as her making it up? Don't know. Once again, he now tells Dishman to clean up the blood after hitting Paxton in the head with a bat. Finnegan had chained Paxton to his bed and left her there. Told Dishman to watch her while he went to work in North Knoxville at the Pint House, a dive bar on Merchants Drive. Feel free to look it up. Dishman did cut some of the zip ties that were on Paxton's wife while Finnegan was away. Dishman told the court that Paxton at one point had asked to leave, to which she responded she couldn't let her go. During the testimony, Dishman said Paxton also asked Finnegan if she could leave. Finnegan allegedly told Paxton he was going to kill her. She wasn't going anywhere. She was going to die. The trial is expected to last about 2 weeks. That was yesterday's testimony. Her telling her feelings and how she met this older man who looked like a bum, nasty bum. You could tell he was smaller. He looked like he was probably on drugs in his mugshot. He's now a fuller looking guy, long hair, ponytail, pulled back, bigger stomach, eating good off the kindness of you all's tax dollars. What will the jury decide? What are they thinking now, those 12 members who are listening to this trial in Clinton, Tennessee? Are they saying to themselves, hell yeah, he's guilty. Hell yeah, he talked this girl into it, but she's guilty. Or is there somebody on the panel saying to themselves, I don't feel sorry. I do feel sorry for her. I think she's got a low-grade mentality. He's got a low-grade mentality, but she didn't know any better, or she feared for her safety. She didn't have a family. She didn't have a support system. Weigh in. Weigh in. Let's go with my notes for today. Officers testified, girl testified, co-worker from the Pine House. This girl from the Pine House says she talked to him about having the two women there jokingly, like, oh, you got two ladies, blah, blah, blah. But she didn't really know them well, friendly with them. But she knew of Jennifer, the transient lady who was murdered. She used to walk the streets up there on Merchants. I know that area very well. She walked that area and would come in to use their restroom at the Pine House. State was asking about that. Well, do y'all normally, allow this people using the bathroom? And she was like, well, you started with one. Everybody else will feel, that they can do it as well, come in and use the restroom. But she knows her from coming to use the restroom at the Pine House. It's a dive bar, I guess, where they have food, drinks, alcoholic beverages. And I guess that's how he met her. She was coming in there to use the bathroom, or he met her on the street nearby. I don't really know. But anyway, she hung out over there, North Knoxville. She hung out on Chapman Highway, South Knoxville. Anyway, she got in cahoots with him. He offered her money to come to his home for sex. And the rest is history. He turned on her when she got there. Day 2 today. You learn he told the coworker about the two women. They were there to take care of his mother. But Jen, he was ready to get rid of her. So how long was she really at that house? Did he turn on her day 1, day 2? What? You listened to Rebecca yesterday. She's kind of in a fog about some things. And testifying yesterday, which I don't know what's going on with her. What's the truth? What ain't the truth? But I do believe these things happened to her and Miss Paxton at that house. The bat went missing from the dive bar. And I got a feeling the bat that he beat Jennifer with is the bat that belonged to the bar. They would use it to hit the bar counter to, calm people down when they were getting too rowdy. So how did he get the bat out of there? You all don't have security cameras in the dive bar? I find that strange, especially in the age where people steal money. Why would you not have security cameras? So we learned in court, the bat never turned up. The bat went missing right before COVID. So this murder took place December 19. We all know that the world went downhill March 2020. This girl testifies, we never saw the bat, never saw it again, never retrieved the bat. So will somebody testify in court? The bat that he beat Miss Paxton with is the same bat that belongs to the bar. The bucket, Fireball. For those of you who drink, don't drink, you now know they make buckets. So was it a tin bucket, metal bucket? It have to be, because allegedly in court, in the findings from the officer, they found something burned or whatever in that bucket. So you don't burn nothing in plastic. I didn't even know that Fireball whiskey made buckets. Very interesting information. How big was the bucket? A lot of craziness. As I said, Officer Craig takes you through taking pictures. You don't see the pictures, of course, but he takes you through what he found, evidence material. That's near the end of the trial today. What was gathered from the house. An axe by an end table. What do you need an axe for? But I hear she was dismembered, so cut a body up, make a lot of a mess, make a big mess, don't you think? Why would an axe be by an end table? Bucket. Fireball bucket. I bet he stole that from the place. So I believe he stole a bat from the job, a bucket from the job. I'm going all over the place, so don't mind me. Why did he tell the coworker about the two women? Because if you had plans to kidnap a woman for funny games and to kill her, why would you admit to the woman, admit to a coworker who she is? So if somebody decides to start looking for her, then the woman could say, oh yeah, she used to come in here and use the bathroom. Oh yeah, he said he took her in. That makes no sense to me. That makes no sense to me. One second, everybody. Why would you tell anybody at the bar you were messing around with Jennifer, she was staying in your house, you were ready for her to go, knowing you were going to kill her, maybe planning to kill her day one when you met her, which that should have been an indicator to Rebecca. When he brought that girl in that house, that woman, he was showing you he had no respect for you. Whether you all had threesomes, didn't have threesomes, don't know what's the truth about that. The point is, when he brought Jennifer there, she was cooking, took a shower, you knew what time of day it was, you should have got your shit and got out of there. Should have left. How long was Jennifer at this house? When he asked her about kidnapping her when she was taking a shower, what did Rebecca say? We didn't get an answer to that. Why did he tell that coworker that he had this Jennifer person in his house who was a transient? Strange to me, especially if he knew he was going to kill her, torture her and kill her. People could come back, like I said, and say, oh yeah, she was coming in here. He said they're living together, blah, 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 dating. This is all foolish. He called both of them his girlfriends to this coworker. That's what she told in court today. Why would you tell that? Oh yeah, I got my two girlfriends there. They're taking care of my mother in hospice. We also learned that Granny got a little crump with the detectives when they came to do the search warrant. Officers saying, oh, this is about weed. So that means she knew her son smoked marijuana. But ma'am, they weren't there. I guess you know that now if you're still alive. They were there because there was a dead body in your house. And I believe you knew Jennifer was in there dead because there's no way you can't hear the conversations. Because those apartments are small. We're not talking about a deluxe penthouse townhouse. You heard every damn thing that was going on in there, and you didn't do a damn thing either to save that lady. The freezer was in the courtroom, nice size, and it was also in the closet. And I even said that before seeing the freezer. I said, no way that was in the closet. But then Officer Craig lets us know that yes, it was in the closet. Food was found in it, contents, whatever in it. So he had taken the body out, put the shelves back in, put food in there, and then put the body under the bed where she was later found by one of the officers. And the bag was just below the waist. So the top part, she didn't have a shirt or nothing on. And naturally, when he found the body, one of the officers, it's a black officer, wasn't expecting to find a body, put his hand under there, felt something cold. Oh, indeed, it was cold. It was frozen, or thawing out at least. A whole human. And when he pulled the body out, the one thing he noticed, besides nothing up here, trash bag on the bottom part of the body, her nose was missing where he had cut off her nose. Once again, he was a cook at the Pine House. So imagine all the people now who know they were eating at this place with a killer sadist who did nasty things with bowel movement, urine, dog collars, chokers, touching your food, cooking your food. How about that? Also, there was a double shooting at that same place not too long ago. One of the guys went on the run. He killed, shot at a security guy and a passenger, a patron who tried to stop him. That guy, one of them was murdered. Very interesting information. Mother was combative, Miss Francis, when the house was searched, claiming, oh, this is about weed. Y'all here to, I guess, disrupt my house about weed. Nah, wasn't about weed. It was about a body, honey. Long hair he had. Did he wear a hairnet? Mr. Finnegan, did you wear a hairnet when you were working? Because you had long hair in your mugshot. You have long hair now in court. Did you wear your hair up? Because you look nasty. And now that we know what you were doing with these women, it's hard to just sit here and put it together. You working with food, and you were messing around, cutting off body parts, cutting the woman after death, cutting her nose off, nipple, whatever, breasts, and then you went into work and messed with people's food, cooked food. I want everybody to think about that. Cars were removed off the property. No evidence was found in the cars. The mother's room was searched. Nothing was found in there of evidentiary material. Bobby Brown owned one of the cars, and one legal registration was up until 12/31/2020. Padlocks, door knob with a lock, padlock, baggies, things were confiscated, 2 Samsung phones. The freezer that was in the closet was operational. It was working, and you heard Ms. Dishman say it was run with a extension cord to keep it operating to house Miss Paxton's body. Black trash bag, gray sheet, some more things pulled out. I got a little busy, so I wasn't able to finish hearing all the things that was taken out, evidentiary, but I was seeing the sheets. Looked like there were some stains on the sheets. Don't know if any of it ties into DNA of Miss Paxton, because she was on the floor. And you heard that mentioned in court yesterday while all this wrangling was going on, torturing of people, him wanting that girl to have sex with Miss Paxton. Miss Paxton rebuffed her. She got turned off. She got upset, Miss Paxton. Rebecca got upset that Miss Paxton didn't want to have sex with her. Why would you? She just got hit in the head. I want y'all to think about that for just a second. She was hit in the head. And you wanted her to perform oral sex on you, Mr. Finnegan. And then, obviously, she probably didn't want to do it. Bleeding. So then you get Miss Dishman to finish you off. And then you want her to go stand over her and do nasty things, climax over her. She said she couldn't climax. He ended up rubbing her hard on her private area to try to make her climax. And then you told her to go do it over the girl. I didn't even understand what that meant. Do it over her. Do what? Stand over her or straddle her? Or put her private part over her face, mouth? I didn't understand none of that. And the lawyer didn't ask her to explain, well, what is he trying to make you do? Straddle over her to climax? She should have asked her. I mean, it's very descriptive and vowel, but people might want you to explain that, because I didn't understand what she meant. Oh, he wanted me to stand over her to climax. Huh? You mean stand over her, squat over her, or put your private part on her face? What? It was weird. And the visual probably would have been just as worse, but there was a picture, they said. We didn't see it. But the jury, I'm assuming, saw a picture of this straddling or whatever was going on. Are you hearing what I'm saying? So that means he was filming it as well. What he was doing to Rebecca and Miss Paxton. Now, that's food for thought. And you're asking yourself, because I'm asking myself, why must you take a picture to relive it? And somebody was saying that in the comment section yesterday when I went live. He probably is getting off on listening to all this testimony of Rebecca reliving what happened in that apartment. The pictures are going to show of the dead woman and this and that. He's getting off on that. That's the whole purpose of doing it anyway, right? The defecation, the urinating on Rebecca, cutting the woman's body, the victim's body after death, ejaculating to a frozen body in a freezer. Because he's sick. And what's sad, he's been walking around the community, that small community outside of Knoxville, Oak Ridge, Tennessee, amongst so-called good Christian folks, regular folks, and nobody had any idea that he is a monster. He's sick. He's demented. He's a rogue. He's foul. He's a demon seed. And he found a younger version of himself to ride the ride. So no matter what she did or did not do in that house with Miss Paxton, she didn't help preserve her life. And that's what 12 members of the jury found her guilty last year for murdering Miss Paxton. And you have to think that most people aren't going to believe she did nothing to the victim. Because what people are going to say is, I could believe you. Where's the proof to say you didn't torture her? Even if you say, oh, well, I didn't. I just sat on the bed because I couldn't believe this was going on and I gave up. And somebody would say, well, if you gave up, you should have left and ran and got help. You should have ran out when you first saw he was mean to you and hurt you in that bathroom before Miss Paxton ever showed up. But you stayed. And we as people make detrimental mistakes in dealing with violent people. Being around them, knowing they pop off, get mad, get angry, cuss, fuss, put their hands on us, Many of us have done it, been with violent people. And some of us have survived, some of us have not. So imagine being in this type of situation. You're riding that ride. I call it that donkey ride because that is indeed what it is. You're riding that donkey ride, hoping they'll change, but they don't. And Miss Rebecca had to find out the hard way. She kept riding that donkey ride into the abyss, and it led deeper, deeper, deeper. Because she was there longer than 8 months. You got to remember, she went there before Miss Paxton came in December. So she went to his home in the fall. Probably what, September, October, somewhere in there. So she was there longer than 8 months. So she was abused by this man for almost a year. One day decided to leave and was sleeping with him, letting him mistreat her, abuse her, while there's a dead woman in the freezer in their bedroom in a closet. Upright freezer, one door, white, big, in a closet, feet away from where you're sleeping with this demon, having sexual relations with this demon. There's a dead woman in the freezer, and you have yet to say, I need to get the hell out of here. Because if he did it to Jennifer, he could do it to me. And that's what's so baffling about this case, is that this girl obviously had the mind of a child, the demeanor of a child, and it took her damn near a year to leave him. He goes and finds the people that were going to take her to the shelter, argue with them, blah, 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 the friend's fiance, husband, whatever. They call the police. Hey, she said there's a dead person in there. He's over here raising hell with us. And then later to get a warrant and go into the home and find her. So I believe the warrant was on a Wednesday. The warrant was issued on a Thursday. I think that Wednesday is when it all, the dead body. And that's when he went and took the body out. So when they went the next day, that Thursday, they find the body during the search. And he had taken her out of the freezer, put her under the bed, but yet he had a car. Goes and picks up this woman, brings her back to the house. Rebecca said she didn't know she was coming to the house. So you had time to also dispose of the body. So why did he leave that body on his property? You've already had her helping you tote freezers up in the room, clean up blood, hold a lot of secret. Your mother had to also know what went on. And yet, you didn't think to take her out of the house to dispose of her. Why not? Let's take the poll on my community page pertaining to Miss Dishman. Her mental state. Thank you for joining me. Was she aware of what she was doing with Sean Finnegan? We will see. 3-part live, everybody. Bianca Ellis, she will have an evaluation for 20 days by North Star in Ohio. And Sarah Boone has decided to represent herself because she has turned away every lawyer, and now it's mandated that she has to represent herself. So she wants to wear a skirt in court. She doesn't want to be shackled. And we will see how that turns out. Is Rebecca Dishman mentally ill, low IQ, and was not aware of what happened to Jennifer Paxton? Only 11 people voted. 18% yes, 36% says no, 45% say they are not sure. Wow. Okay. Let's hear a little bit of Court TV. This was uploaded yesterday. Hello. Miranda, how are you? Welcome to the Vault Excel. Thank you.
It's a relatively small community of about 30,000 in the
Oak Ridge, Tennessee.
eastern part of the state near Knoxville. Oak Ridge was built under a cloak of secrecy by the United States government during World War II as a major site of the Manhattan Project, the massive wartime effort that produced the world's first atomic weapon. And prosecutors say there was another fatal secret being kept in Oak Ridge in December of 2019. This man, Sean Finnegan, along with his much younger fiancée, Rebecca Dishman, abducted a young woman named Jennifer Paxton. And while in captivity, they allegedly chained her up, sexually abused and tortured her over the course of weeks. Eventually, she was murdered and mutilated, dismembered, and placed into a stand-up freezer. The darkness of this tale is extreme. The allegations absolutely horrid. But Rebecca Dishman is telling the jury everything, details you would only expect to hear in the most vile horror movie. But it's real. And tonight, we'll let you hear the story as our experts break down how and why a human would ever engage in such unspeakable conduct as we investigate the tragic death of Jennifer Paxton. I'm Vinny Politan. Thanks for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. This is a warning ahead of time. This next hour is going to be intense. Absolutely intense. You're going to hear things that maybe you never thought you were going to hear, but it's the reality of what's happening. Now, in the years here at Court TV, we've come across comparing.
We're going to go into a little bit of what you had to say.
Could you tell us about what happened when Jennifer came in?
She came in and I was putting the bed up and I was confused because I didn't know the woman, and Sean later came in and introduced us together. She made breakfast and asked to take a shower, and once she went to go take a shower, Sean asked me, "Do you want to kidnap her?" She ate breakfast and we were talking, and after she ate breakfast, he walked her over towards the back door and was showing her a baseball bat. And then he started hitting her over the head. And I went into shock and he yelled at me to go upstairs. He told me to clean up the blood, and he was disgrading her. He ripped her pants down and was screaming at her and said,
Did you speak up more, a little louder? Okay. A little close to my phone.
He said, "Why don't you shave?" And she was
I had to re-listen to that. Why don't you shave? So obviously he doesn't like hairy women down there. Sean Finnegan. Everyone's entitled to his or her preferences. But when you're talking about this type of behavior, hurting a person, torturing a person, the preferences goes out the window. You understand what I'm saying? Because you're trying to kill a person. So no matter if they got hair or no hair, on their legs, pubic hair, whatever. This is baffling. Just listening to this has given me chill bumps. And I'm telling you, it makes me as a single person afraid to go out into the world and meet and greet. Rather go to this person's home. They come to mine, get in a car with a person, a man. Do you hear what I'm saying to you? Because you can't think this doesn't happen because we're talking about it and this is real. And sadly, there'll be another case similar to this. And I think about the young black girl who was killed up north and went on a date with the white guy a little while ago. And he took her back to his house and dismembered her and threw her body out into the park and to the Lake Michigan. Yeah, that's something to think about. Because you don't know people. And she probably thought she was having a wonderful time with this tall white guy, pretty hair, blonde hair, until he took her back to that house and decided to play funny games with her. He's this big, great, tall person. She's this little, big, petite person. And she couldn't win. It was just the fact of knowing. He knew what he wanted to do. Went out hunting. Someone to kill, torture. And I want that to get the same similar acts this thing did to Miss Paxton. And sadly, he had help. I have not heard that that guy had help. But it doesn't matter. It's foul. And so here we have her on the ground fighting for her life inside of this apartment where there are eyewitnesses that can see and hear, and there's nobody to help her. And the only thing he's concerned with, why don't you shave? What difference does it make? You're still going to do what you want to me, whether I have hair on my body or not.
Started crying and he just spat on her and was really
Spit on him. Wow.
aggressive towards her. He forced her to perform oral sex on him, and I was forced to watch.
And so forgive me for being very overt with this. You say he forced her to perform oral sex. Could you tell us where his penis is?
He put his penis in her mouth and ripped her clothes.
And she's in the floor next to the bed.
Yes.
Where are you?
I was crouched beside him.
And how long did that continue?
So that's what's going to make people believe right there, that statement. I was crouched beside him. Well, if you are fearing for your safety, you are mortified at what he's doing, why would you be right beside him crouched down? We know what crouched down means. That means you're squatting down on your feet, knees bent. So what are you crouched down doing? That would lead me to believe you were participating. That would lead me to believe you were participating. Because why are you right there where he is while he's sexually assaulting her? Why are you down there, hunched down there with him? Because you're participating. So she can play the role like, oh, at some point I got disgusted, turned off, ran downstairs, you know, all this stuff she added on. But right now you're saying, oh, I was crouched down. That's going to lead one to believe you were down for whatever he was going to do. Because he probably called you over and said, come on, I'm getting ready to take it. And that's why you were down on the floor with him.
Yeah.
Until he got angry and pulled my shirt down and made me finish.
And what do you mean by he made you finish?
He wasn't satisfied with her and he made me perform oral on him.
Were there anything else that he did sexually at any point to Miss Paxton?
He forced my adult toys inside of her and forced his fingers on her and forced me to watch. And also, at one point, she was on the floor and he was behind me and he forced me to climax over her. I couldn't climax until he forced me to climax.
I don't understand what this is. Right?
But that does mean
Yes.
that you are participating. And when you say he forced you to climax, what do you mean by that?
He physically, like, aggressively rubbed me until I climaxed.
Okay, so he is touching you while you're over her.
Yes.
If we have the picture of that.
A picture.
And what did he do at your climax?
Explain this to me. I think I'm pretty savvy in trying to comprehend some things. She's over her body, which I'm assuming what, on top of her? And then he's touching her private part while she's over her. So is she squatting over her body or she's, I don't understand. She's squatting over, she's standing over, because she's saying he's touching her private part while she's over Miss Paxton. But then you hear the state say, well, but you were participating. Like, you know, they're touching. Because you can't participate without touching. So how's he touching her from the front, from the back? I don't understand. This is weird to me.
X.
She was revolted by it, and she said I was gonna throw up, and he slapped her across the face, and I just shut down.
Did Miss Paxton ask to leave?
Yes.
What could you do about that?
I told her that I wish I could let her leave, but I didn't have any way of letting her go, and it really upset me.
Did she ever tell?
So she says, I was really upset at seeing her in that state. The woman has told you that she wants to throw up. She didn't want you over her or participating or touching her. Whatever the hell y'all are doing. I don't really understand. The state says they have pictures. So did he have a secret camera in there? Or he was filming while he was watching what they were doing and what he was doing? I don't really understand what they're saying over here. But obviously a picture was taken on a phone. Not a video? Interesting. This is some weird shit.
Tell Mr. Finnegan she needed to leave or wanted to leave.
Yes.
What was his reaction?
He told her that as he was killing her, that she wasn't going anywhere, that she was going to die.
So when you say he said he told her you're going to die,
Yes.
what did she do?
She started crying.
And what did he do?
He just kicked her and spat on her and was really aggressive.
She used that word a lot, aggressive.
Did he any time follow through on telling her she had to die?
He did this as he was strangling her. As he was strangling her, I was cleaning up the blood that was left over in the shower. And at one point, he screamed at me to get in the bedroom that I was taking too long.
So right there should tell you the mother's allegedly in hospice in this apartment on the same floor where they're doing all this shenanigans in the bedroom. You want me to believe the mother didn't hear any of this going on? I'll wait. Of course she did. So the same energy she had when the police came with the search warrant, where was that energy when all this was going on? All this noise making, raping of a woman, forcing himself on her, hollering at her to clean up blood out the bathroom. You're right up there in a room next door or across the hall or whatever, hearing all this, and you don't say nothing. You don't say a word, ma'am. Francis. Don't know if you're alive or dead. Is the mother alive? I'd like to know. Why didn't you say something? Did Francis say something to her son about what she heard in that apartment the month of December 2019? I'd like to know. Because this is bullshit that we don't hear anything about the mother. We never heard that he had a job, that he worked anywhere. We heard she worked somewhere briefly but got fired from her 2 jobs. So we have to ask ourselves why she kept getting fired from jobs. He's working at this pint house, cooking people's food and doing all this nasty stuff with them, with padlocks, chains, like I said, fecal matter, urine. Now people know that you're eating with this nasty thing touching your food. He's raping these women, tying them up, torturing them. No words.
Long. And I came in and he told me to lock the door. And as I walked in, he was straddled over her, strangling her with a shoestring, and told me to help him. And I just shut down and sat on the bed and just gave up, essentially.
Why did he need help strangling her? This is what's baffling as well. She says this took hours to kill Miss Paxton. It doesn't take hours to strangle a person, choke a person, suffocate a person. So I find this strange. Was he just trying to act like he was choking the lady? You know, actually putting his hands around her throat, but not ready to kill her. I'm confused. Because as I said, if you are adamant on killing someone by strangulation and you have the fortitude, the strength to choke a person, why would it take hours to choke a person? Because you hear her say he would choke her, then let her go. Choke her, let her go. So I'm confused. Was he just playing some type of mind game with the woman? You know, choke her, then stop, watch her gag, start back again. We also heard he would take smoke breaks. This is crazy to me. That's why all this is bullshit. Her saying, oh, it took hours. Okay? Hey, Mary. It's like it was some type of game. Choke her, stop. Choke her, stop. Oh, go smoke a cigarette. She's sitting here now saying, oh, I was just on the bed. I flaked out. But still, no running, no leaving. Let me go call one of the neighbors. Let me go with one of the neighbors, use their phone. Because she didn't have a phone. But yet he worked, had a job. You should have told him to buy you a phone. But remember, she testified, he saw her texting some guy or some ex was texting her. He got mad, lashed out at her when she first got there. That's how she got hurt in the bathroom. That was your sign to leave him then, before Jennifer came. Now, it's not to say had she left out, this still wouldn't happen to Jennifer. Because when people want something, they'll go after what they want. So he was seeing Jennifer regardless of Rebecca being in the picture. Let's always remember that. Jennifer probably would have still ended up at this address whether Rebecca was there or not. Whether she was there or not. And he possibly still would have tied her up, left her there on the floor, played funny games with her when he got back, and the end result probably would have been the same.
How long did this go on?
For hours.
Like, could you describe for us specifically what was going on in the course if you say this was hours?
He would start and stop, like take breaks in between.
What finally concluded this episode?
He went to empty the ashtray and she was taking her last breath, and I got on my hands and knees and told her goodbye because I knew she was dying. And he came back inside and slapped me across the face.
You're the guy with the gun, the person who would do anything to protect the ones you love.
So,
But did you know you could go to jail for simply doing the right thing?
sorry about that brief commercial. So, it's abuse interchangeably. Abusing Miss Paxton, raping her, then making her finish off with him sexually, oral sex, then slapping her because of what? He's choking this woman, take a break, let me go over here and hit Miss Rebecca. So interchangeably, he's abusing both. And this one, she can walk away and run away. She's got 2 feet. She ain't tied up, Rebecca. And what she didn't understand, you're sitting here watching him do this to you in the beginning, beat you up, hurt you, push you, whatever, hurt your leg. He's playing these mind games with dog collars and chains and dog cages. He will do the same to you as what he did to Miss Paxton. That's why I don't understand why she didn't see that. You could have ended up dead as well. You did good to hold on 10 months, whatever, with him. Let's just keep it real.
showed you and play for you during the course of this hour. But this really sort of outlines a big part of what happened here to Jennifer Paxton. But there are more details that get even more depraved that we'll get into. But let me bring in our experts who are going to help walk us through all of this. Joining me tonight, clinical and forensic neuropsychologist, associate professor at Pepperdine University, and author of the book, The New Rules of Attachment, Dr. Judy Ho is with us. Retired FBI Special Agent Bobby Chacon is with us. And finally, psychotherapist and author of the book, The Minds of Mass Killers, Understanding and Interpreting the Pathway to Violence, Javon Scott is with us as well. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I just want to start with initial reactions to what we're hearing from Rebecca Dishman, from your different perspectives. I'll begin with you, Dr. Judy Ho.
Well, Vinny, that was definitely difficult to watch. And Rebecca seemed like there was just no emotion attached at all to her testimony. I'm not really sure if I could see if that was just a freeze response or if maybe she doesn't have a ton of remorse, but notice.
I want you to think about what the doctor is saying. Her responses in court are flat, dry. That's what was said by one of the officers that talked to her, interrogated her. That's what was said in court today. That she was flat in interviewing her and her responses to what happened to Ms. Paxton and herself. Flat, dry. So now you hear an outsider saying the same. I say the same. So that tells me that's who she is. It's not an act. She talked that way with authorities. She talked that way in court yesterday and today. Flat testimony, flat, verbatim, this what happened, blah, 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 whether you believe what happened or not. That's her demeanor in court. That was her demeanor during interrogation. No emotion, no hyper spinning the web. Oh, he did this, she did this. Oh. You never heard the officer say she cried when she told the story about what happened to Ms. Paxton. She testified in court yesterday and today. There's no crying. There's no, I feel bad. I shouldn't have done that. I should have left. I should have called the police. I should have did this, and this. There's no whimpering, crying in testimony. There's no whimpering, crying in talking to the police years ago. She's devoid of emotion, it seems. The judge even had to tell her, you're going to have to speak up, okay? We can't hear you. You're going to have to talk closer to the microphone so we can understand what you're saying. We can't hear you. So this is who she is. It's her demeanor. Soft-spoken, quiet, probably not a hellraiser, never give her opinion, don't speak up. You heard the neighbor who aided help and ended up getting in an altercation with her boyfriend, Mr. Sean, that they were taking her to the, get her some help at a shelter. He said she acted childlike. Get excited over childlike things his children. So they let you know she has a childlike mind, and maybe she was sheltered growing up. Don't know if she was mistreated or not. Both her parents are dead. Don't know what happened to them. Don't know if they died in a car wreck accident, how far along the deaths are, if it was drug related, natural causes. I'd like to hear that. Because that may give us some idea to who Rebecca is and how she got to this place. Because we learned she went from place to place to place after the age of 16 and somehow fell in the lap of Mr. Sean. She was looking for a savior. I do believe that. I believe she was a very lonely person. He's lonely too. Sick as he is, he's lonely. Because he doesn't know how to communicate with a human without putting his hands on you, pushing you, shoving you, beating you, cutting you. So now we got to ask, who raised Sean Finnegan? That Francis lady that he was taking care of, who's in hospice. We don't even hear a worker coming or going during all this fiasco in the month of December 19. How did she treat Sean? What did she subject Sean to for him to turn into this diabolical creature? See, you always want to get in the belly of the beast to see how a person got to where they are. Because that's been asked about serial killers, rapists, sadists. Were they born that way or they were man-made? So is Sean a man-made creature, monster, or he was born that way? I'm going to put that on a poll.
Notice that she used a lot of language which deferred a lot of the blame onto Sean. And there were a couple times when the attorney who was examining her said, well, you were an active participator, though. There's a couple of times there were questions like that because she seemed to make it sound like she was just forced the entire time and she didn't want to have anything to do with it, and that there was some shred of humanity she exhibited towards Jennifer. But I'm not totally sure that I buy that because it just sounds like there was so much horrible, terrible torture throughout the days that Jennifer was alive and in their custody. And I can't imagine that it was just her being forced completely the entire time. And I think that that's what the attorney was trying to get to, is how much of this was also an active participation on your part.
Bobby Ciccone, I know you've seen a lot in your career. What are your initial thoughts about this case?
Well, I was thinking the same thing as Judy was. I think we know what happened. We know what she's telling us is the truth. We don't know what her level of participation was. And that's always the difficult portion of this case. You kind of know what the defendant's role was, but you really don't know. You don't know if the victim is downplaying their own role, is having problems just admitting it publicly, or what. So, that's the most difficult thing, but it's less of a concern. We need to know what this defendant did. He's the one on trial. But I did see some of the same mannerisms in her, like, there are people that I know that witness things like this that actually physically vomited because they couldn't bear to witness something like this being done to someone else in their presence. And this witness did not have that reaction. So we're not really sure what her level of participation was.
Siobhan, Scott, what are your initial thoughts as you hear this description of what Rebecca Dishman is saying happened to Jennifer Paxton and what Sean Finnegan was doing?
Yeah, I was able to watch several hours of her testimony today, and she struck me as very childlike, somewhat cognitively slow. She's not a terribly bright person, and very, very dependent. I think often in these cases where you have a male perpetrator and a female who seems to be the accomplice, there's a tremendous dependency factor going on there. It's almost like the woman will do anything for love, anything to be attached to him, which of course is a trauma bond. And we did hear about the abuse that she suffered from him, being cut with box cutters, burned with a blowtorch, chained up, so there's layers and layers of what's gone on here. And I'm very curious about what else will come out.
Dr. Judy, what do you think of his reaction as she is testifying, him inside that courtroom?
I think he probably was advised by his counsel to maintain a neutral expression. He was taking notes. He was clearly very attentive.
And let me say this, pertaining to yesterday and today in court, sorry I didn't say this at the beginning of the live stream, he shook in court the whole time. Stared, nodded a few times, said some little conversations that they didn't allow, us to hear, or the outside audience. But he shook a lot. And I think he shook because he did not want people to be in his business. Like he told that officer a few years ago, I don't want people in my business. I ain't got no dead body in here. He didn't want the truth to be known because he knew what was going to happen once it was revealed that Jennifer was in that house in the freezer. He would go to jail. So court, fast forward 4 years later, it's the same MO. I don't want you in my business. I'm mad. You all know my dirty secret that I like to defecate, urinate on women, tie them up, put dog collars around them, their throat, make them walk around like a dog, put them in dog cages. That's what he did to Rebecca. She said that. You now know my secret, and it's the secret I didn't want you to know because I've been walking around here fraudulently, pretending to be normal, sane when I'm not. Now you know I'm not. So that guy I've been portraying myself at the pint bar, pint house bar, whatever he's working at, I'm the cook, I'm that friendly guy. I ain't really him. I'm a low-down, rotten-ass dog. I'm a sadist. I enjoy those things that you're not supposed to enjoy, like cutting off body parts, ejaculating to a frozen corpse, playing around with the corpse, exposing myself to a corpse. Who does this? She's dead. She's dead and she's frozen. What was she supposed to do? Jump out the freezer? She had enough of you when she was living. So she's dead. She can't do anything. She can't say anything. This is how vile he is. And he was 50-something years old when he did this. So, or near 50. So he's been doing stuff that's nasty. Will we hear from other people, women, who are going to spin similar stories about Sean Finnegan?
I did not see any sign of remorse, any sign of emotionality whatsoever. Sometimes you do in defendants. Sometimes they start weeping, they start sobbing, they start looking sad, they start wrinkling their face as if they're having some kind of an emotional distaste from hearing the perspective of what they did from someone else who was there to witness
He's dead
it.
inside.
We didn't really notice any of that.
Dead stare.
I don't think I'm surprised by that, because obviously if this is a person who has normal range, empathy and morality and emotionality, he would not have been able to do this. So I think that lends less to the argument that maybe this was just for example, a psychotic break for him, a once in a lifetime thing. This may be a long time pattern that this person has exhibited for a very, very long
he has
period
done
of
it a
time.
long time. I agree.
We're going to listen to more testimony, more of this depravity that was engaged in. I mean, this is tough stuff, but we're going to play more of it, and our experts are going to stay with us to help us through all of this. We'll do that, plus coming up next hour. Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, Maya Miliente disappeared on January.
All right, brief intermission. Two lonely souls floating around the universe came across each other's paths. Rebecca and Sean. He was old enough to be her father. He misled her, led her into the abyss. She willingly went, and she could have left. That's the moral of the story. No matter her mental capacity, she could have left Sean Finnegan before Jennifer ever made it there. And as someone said in the chat yesterday, could it be she became jealous of the other woman, wanted to make her suffer, hoped she'd suffer like what he was doing to her? Could be. But the point is, why ride the ride? Because she had to have known this was not going to end well when he started abusing her before Jennifer showed up. Jennifer shows up. Now there's another girl in the house. Oh, you like her? But he had no respect for Jennifer or Rebecca. And that's what Rebecca should have realized. He doesn't care for me, so he couldn't care for her. So it don't matter how she looked, if she looked pretty, whatever. He didn't want her. She was just something to toy with. Play mind games. As he said to her when she was in the shower, to Rebecca, hey, you want to kidnap her? That was the plan anyway, was it not? See, he was playing mind games then with Rebecca. He knew why he wanted her at the house in the first place. That's why he brought her all the way out to Oak Ridge from Knoxville, was to play funny games. That's my terminology for not so great behavior. Sadist behavior, I call them funny games because it's not funny, but it's just a diplomatic way of saying atrocious behavior. Court TV is the source of this information. I will put up more polls after this live stream, so feel free to go to my community page after this live and take the polls. Thank you so much.
And her to his day. The two of them engaged in raping her, kept her chained for days. She had to defecate in a Fireball whiskey bucket that they brought upstairs to the bedroom floor. After he finished, cleaned up the body, ordered a freezer, and put that freezer in his house, wrapped up her body, and put Jennifer Neal Paxton in a freezer. And kept her there for 8
I thought they said that freezer was already there. I'm not really sure. What's the truth about that
Unbelievable
freezer?
story inside this house of horrors. Still with us, our special guests, our experts, looking at this case tonight, Dr. Judy Ho, Bobby Ciccone, and Siobhan Scott. Bobby, to me, it seems like this is a case where, yes, you've got this powerful testimony from the co-conspirator in all of this, but you also have, I believe, a house full of potential forensic evidence.
You do, and they marry up well, right? I mean, that's the home run that a prosecutor wants. You want a physical victim on the stand that can testify and corroborate the physical evidence you find at the scene. In this case, the defendant's home. So it's really going to be hard for him to, I can't fathom how they're going to try to explain that away. I think this is more likely a trial where they're just trying to keep him off the death penalty and out of the electric chair. So I think that this is really the combination that's really hard. You have a bunch of horrific physical forensic evidence inside that house, and now you have a witness from inside that house testifying to what all that means. And that's a really good combination for a prosecutor to have.
Yeah, I can't imagine what was going on beyond those walls of that home. And we're hearing it. Let's take a listen to more testimony from Rebecca Dishman here, talking about what they did with the body, with the remains after the murder.
So she died, and he says, I'm going to go to work. Is that what you're saying? So what happens? He goes to work, and you're there.
Yes. From the time he left to the time he came home, I was on his side of the bed, checking her pulse, and just in a state of shock and fear.
Did she have a pulse?
No.
Did you call 911?
No.
Did you have a phone
No.
at that point?
Why not go get help? I don't understand.
So he comes home from work after he's worked his whole shift,
Yes.
presumably. So what happens when he arrives home that night or early the next morning?
Me and him clean up any blood and anything that's left over, and we brought her downstairs, and he put her in the freezer.
Before she's put in the freezer, could you walk us through again the process before putting her in the freezer the first time?
When we put her in the freezer, Sean was in front of her and I was behind her. And he forced her body to go inside of the freezer, and she made a noise, like snapping noise, and blood went on me, and it freaked me out.
So was she completely naked at that point? Did she have anything around her
The noise that the victim made was her bone snapping, them pushing her into the freezer to make her fit. Now, my understanding, she was a tall lady. I don't know what her height was at the time of death. But when I look at the freezer, it's a nice size freezer. So I'm trying to understand why her bones were popping to put her inside. Because I saw the freezer in court today. It was bigger than what I thought. It was supposed to be an upright freezer. It had the door that pulled out. It was a big freezer. And I would assume once you take the shells out, an average size person could probably fit in there, without much breaking of bones or whatever. But she said shoving her in there, something snapped, a noise was made, and blood came out. So they popped her naked bones, and I guess the blood came out from the victim, from the body. Lord have mercy.
or anything else done to the body?
She had a shower curtain and garbage bags.
I wish my TV provider let me choose what I pay for.
Shower curtain, garbage bag she was stored in. That was also exhibited in court in the evidence opened in court in the bags. The paper bags they put the evidence in. All the sheets and things were revealed in court today. Nasty, some nasty business here.
together, taking the body, bringing it downstairs, cleaning it up, stuffing it into a freezer. There's
Clean
a
with bleach. She was clean
level
with
of
bleach.
disconnect from
Yes.
being an actual human being.
Yeah, she's
from my
detached.
perspective at this point.
She's very
What do you think's going on in their minds in these moments?
Well, I think that two of them are probably very different. You know, he's a sexual sadist, a psychopath. For Rebecca, there's just a disconnect from reality. I, again, wonder about her cognitive limitations, her ability to even see that she had a course of action or resources. So I think they're very different, and I think they had different motivations. It does seem that she was just along for the ride with him, and anything he did, she was going to accept it and go with it.
Dr. Judy Ho, as I heard that description, a snapping noise, that's the body snapping and breaking, and you just continue. Or we're gonna get her in the freezer, and then we're gonna clean that up, but we gotta get her inside the freezer. And then you're gonna live in a home with a body in the freezer.
Right. I mean, Vinny, just like you pointed out in the last segment before the break, you know, when people are forced to endure and observe these horrific crimes, they vomit. They have these really intense emotional and behavioral responses. And what she said about that moment when she had heard this body snap was, oh, yeah, some blood got on me and I freaked out. It seems to minimize the gravity of the situation.
Exactly.
And every time she's asked a question that was more pointed, like, did you call the police? Did you have a phone? What else did you do? Notice that she just sort of purses her lips a bit and says, no, looks down. I mean, some of that could be a sense of shame of being involved in this in any form or shape, but also, to me, it seems a little dismissive as well. Like, she's just so completely detached from the fact that this was a human being that they tortured and committed horrific crimes on for several days. And even her recollection of it just seems so disengaged from what actually happened. And I just wonder about what she's thinking about as she's answering these questions.
Very good points made by our psychiatrist or psychotherapist here. Is this girl detached from reality and was detached emotionally from the world before meeting Sean Finnegan? Because that's something I'd like to know. Was she detached before meeting him? Had a weird existence, horrible existence, or just didn't bond with the world, bond with parents, family, was just a shy person, wasn't very emotional beforehand? Because what you have to ask yourself, would she have done this type of behavior on her own had she not met him? Do you understand what I'm saying? Because we see that she acts childlike, she's very meek, mild-mannered. Would she have gotten into this type of debacle had she not met him? Could she have gone on and led a great, successful life had she not crossed paths with Sean Finnegan? I'm going to ask all these questions. Who is Rebecca Dishman? Was she detached from reality before she met him? Because as you hear, it's obvious she went along for the ride. As I call it, that donkey ride. She rode it, most definitely. But if she had another type of personality, would she have still gone along for the donkey ride? We will probably never know.
Questions in such a direct manner.
Now, all of this obviously has been disturbing. This next part might be close to the top of disturbing moments and things that you would never expect to hear another human being doing. Let's watch.
Your company's data ecosystem is complicated.
Very scary. Very scary. Who is Rebecca Dishman? How is she adjusting in jail over there in Clinton? Well, she's probably sent off now, sorry. How does she feel about being in court testifying?
I'm sort of masturbating to Jennifer.
Could you describe that scene for us?
The first time I was taking a shower and I came in to put my dirty clothes in the hamper and he was masturbating and he held out his hand and I was confused as to what it was until I looked over and he had cut off her nose and intimate areas.
And what did you do when you walked in and saw that?
It freaked me out. I ran downstairs and
She couldn't say it.
was almost outside of the door, but he yelled at me to get back inside.
Ran downstairs at that point, you said?
Yes.
Where's
He
the
yelled at
mother?
you.
While this is going
What
on.
happened after that?
After I went upstairs, he closed the door and made me perform oral sex on him because they were awesome.
Let me stop
Okay,
right there. So you see he equates, Sean, violence with sex. Cut off the nose of a frozen person that he has murdered, and then he's caught masturbating to this frozen body in a freezer. So she takes off and runs, Rebecca, hey, you get back up here. And then she goes back up there. Now he's telling her to put her face between his crotch. Are you hearing what I'm saying? He equates violence with sex. He equates sex with violence. He ain't getting what he want. Okay, let me make her do it. Nobody wants to give a guy oral sex and he just got beat in the head with a bat. Of course she didn't want to put her mouth on your penis. You just hit her with a baseball bat, Jennifer. So he's mad because she don't want to play. Then he's talking about, I guess, her private parts. That is too hairy, or her legs, or whatever. Why don't you shave? You just hit me with a baseball bat. And that's all you can think about. I got hair on my body. So then he goes over to Rebecca. Hey, put your mouth down here. Do you see what's going on? It's tit for tat. He can't get his way on this angle. I got to go do this. I don't like what you're doing. You ain't giving me what I want. I got to go do this. So here comes the slapping, the pushing, the shoving. So he interchanges violence with sex. Sex with violence. Violence. Oh, come back here. Give me oral sex. What did you think she was supposed to do? You just show a woman's breasts or whatever and a person's nose in your hand and you're reaching your hand out and handing it to me. What am I supposed to do with it? This was all okay with her. Well, she probably does have some mental issues. That's why I'd like a diagnosis on her. Because the neighbor says she acted childlike. And that is how she comes across. Here she comes across, very sullen, quiet, like, meek. Judge has to tell her to speak up. But a neighbor has said she acted like a child. She would get excited over things that he said his children would get excited over. So that gives us a synopsis a little bit into who she is. So I'd like some other people to come forward to talk about what their dealings were like with Rebecca Dishman before she got incarcerated, before she got tangled up with this fool. He's not going to tell us nothing because he's an idiot. We got to hear his voice on audio. He gets hyped quick. He's that type that likes to pop off. He's a violent person. That's obvious. He's done this before when a woman kept her kidnapped. I didn't hear that he did all these type of things to her when she was able to escape. This was over in Blount County. He sits outside of Knoxville. She got away. The point I'm making in this live stream is that he didn't wake up this way. He's been this way a long time. He's had these violent thoughts of hurting women, torturing women, kidnapping women, killing women. He's probably done it to other women. Are they going to come forward? Are we going to find out there's some women missing, dead? Somebody needs to be investigating him. His DNA needs to be put into CODIS. There's no way you can't have his DNA in CODIS by now. Because what's going to be sad is if we find out there's some other women out here missing and DNA bodies have been found and they're linked to him. This man needs to be investigated thoroughly.
Siobhan Scott, what we just heard, a description of you mentioned sexual deviancy. This is dark stuff.
Yeah, it's very dark.
Somebody early in life paired sexuality with violence and torture.
Yeah.
And yeah, he did not wake up one day with this way of
Exactly.
being. This
Thank
has
you.
been him forever.
Yeah, he's been this way a long time.
Have you ever heard of behavior quite like this? The combination of mutilation, murder, and self-gratification, and then the torture all at the same time?
Unfortunately, yes. I mean, we've come across cases like this where breasts have been cut off, the women have been mutilated sexually, and then the perpetrator continues to engage in activity with either the corpse or the dying person.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there are people
Ted
like
Bundy
that
did it.
out there like this. This level of depravity is towards that end, but certainly I've seen it before.
Dr. Judy Ho, what do you think's going through his mind as she is reliving these moments? I wonder if he's enjoying the stories.
Mm-hmm.
I know. When just before you said that, I think we were on the same track of mind here. I was wondering if reliving it was a form of arousal for him. You know, like, wow, that sounds pretty great. I wish I was back in that situation right now. I mean, who knows what this person is thinking? I mean, that's what's difficult when we're trying to conduct analysis on a mind that is so far gone from what is the normal spectrum that you can't really fathom what might be going through his mind. I think that he's trying to hold it together. He's trying to act sort of serious, sort of emotionless, but I do wonder if inside he's thinking, yeah, that was a great time. I mean, how many times, because he did keep her body in that freezer for that many months, did he open the freezer and that aroused him and he went off to masturbate or have sex with Rebecca? I mean, we have no idea. We'll hear more testimony, I guess, but probably many, many times.
When we come back, our experts will stay with us, and we're going to zero in on the relationship between these co-accused torturers, murderers.
Brief intermission. Hello, everybody in the chat. Thank you for joining me. We have heard these stories before of sadists, psychopaths, serial killers. They were abused as children, teenagers. I won't doubt that Sean Finnegan was molested as a child, abused as a child, physically abused. That's where the violence towards women comes from. He probably had a mother who was abused. That's why she was so combative when they did the search warrant.
No, they passed away when I was 18. My aunt and uncle, Bobby Brown and Carol Brown, took me in.
And when was that?
I don't recall.
Okay.
Very interesting. Now, this has got my head wondering. She said Bobby and Carol Brown took her in, but one of the cars that was on the property was registered to a Bobby Brown. Why is that? Because I thought she didn't have a phone, she didn't have a car. Oh, the plot thickens now. Maybe that's how he came to know Rebecca Dishman. It said he knew her aunt and uncle. Because something here is not right. Oh yeah, Queen gonna put it together. When you go back and watch the trial from today, the officer is going to tell you what was seized from the property. The pictures he took of the house, outside, inside. And one of the things seized from the house were 2 cars. One of those cars was to a Bobby Brown. She's telling you now in court from yesterday that her aunt and uncle's names are Brown. So why would a Brown car be on the property? Because I think that Brown car didn't have a valid tag, but his car, I think, had a valid tag that had 12/31/2020. So one of the cars was in my notes. One of the cars that was on the property had a tag for 12/31/2020. So that means that was a valid tag on the property at the time of seizure, which would have been August 2020. So somebody put a sticker on that car back in back in December, which was 8 months back. Okay? didn't drive, did she? My understanding, she didn't have a car, she didn't have money, she didn't have a phone. So what I'm saying is, why is one of her relatives' cars on the property at the time of the search warrant? This is baffling information. So this leads me to believe that's how he came to find her on Facebook. But that's why they were upset. Probably, she said they got upset with her when she moved in with somebody and they cut her off. Okay, well, let's think about that. She said, oh, they got upset with me for moving in with somebody, so they cut off ties with me. Okay, well then, how would one of their cars get on your property, on this property with Sean? This makes no sense. Unless she had bought a car from one of the relatives, and then when they hooked up, she drove that same car over to Sean's house, and then the car became inoperable. What are we saying here? Because something's fishy here with the car business. Because I caught that today in court. One of the cars seized was under the name Bobby Brown registration. Now you have her saying in court yesterday, oh, my uncle's name is Bobby Brown. So why is Bobby Brown's car over here at this house and you ain't been talking to that family? Could it be they registered a car and she kept it, or paid the note, or something's off? Something's way off here.
Do you recall how long you lived there with, you said Bobby Brown and Carol Brown?
Maybe a year, not for sure.
A year.
So you stayed with them for about a year. Did you leave voluntarily?
They kind of just washed their hands of me. They got tired of me.
Do you know why that was?
Because I was with another fiance and I decided to move in with him and they weren't happy.
Another fiance.
How many fiancés have you had?
I've been engaged 5 times, but I've lived with the 3 of them.
5 times engaged,
This is
never
crazy.
married. Parents died at 18. It's been I guess a child.
Let's chop that up. 5 guys. She lived with 3. Bobby Brown is the uncle, or one of the relatives that she stayed with. They washed their hands of her because she got tangled up with some man. So how old was the man? Where's she meeting these men? We hear that she met Sean on the internet. This don't make no sense. He just saw this girl and was attracted to her. He's old enough to be her daddy. She started responding back to him. What I'd like to know is, do the Browns know Sean Finnegan? She comes out of Blount County. We learned that he committed a crime in Blount County that never got justice. Pay attention to what the Queen's saying to you. There's ties here. Now that I sit here and replay all this back in my head, there's ties, I believe, here. Because one of his allegations is of a kidnapping in Blount County. She's from Blount County. She's from Maryville. Okay? I think he knew her family in some type of way. They were friends, cordial, knew of each other. He probably saw her on somebody's Facebook account, pictures, became obsessed, sickly over her, whatever. You hear she fell out with them because she moved in with some guy. That's what she's been doing, is moving in with one guy after the other, one guy after the other. She's moved in with 3 guys, been engaged 5 times allegedly. So she's not keeping those sustainable relationships. Don't know how old these guys are. Guys her age are immature. I don't expect it to last. Because young people they're just finding themselves, you understand? So how old are these other guys? Are any of them older like Sean? Number 1. Why she couldn't keep her jobs? She said she got let go of every job. So that means she wasn't performing well, perhaps, or wasn't doing what she was supposed to do, or maybe she couldn't comprehend well. We know that she can't comprehend well because she didn't even know how to fill out information to go to the shelter. How hard is that? All you're doing is giving your name and your birth date and your social security number. She said the girl who was trying to help her get her to the shelter, she said, oh, I don't know how to do these type of things. What do you mean? You applied for a job, you got a job. It's the same thing. You give your name, social security number, your address, you tell them why you need to be in a shelter. You gotta talk. So if you're able to talk for a job interview, you would do the same to talk to the people who try to help you get in the shelter. But that's the one thing she said in court yesterday. Oh, I don't know how to talk for myself. I don't know how to do those type of things. What do you mean? You don't know how to talk. But you could ride the ride with this demon who was torturing you and another woman. You could do that. But you can't speak up for yourself just to say, hi, my name is Rebecca Dishman. My phone number is, my address is, my social security number is. This is some baffling shit. I won't doubt she was sheltered growing up, or they didn't give her the tools she needed to sustain herself, speak for herself. She didn't learn to have a voice for herself. That's how she got tangled up with Sean. And it's really a sad tale. Despite her going along with what happened in that house, because he abused her as well. I do believe he abused her too. There's no way I think he treated her better than Jennifer, and I don't believe that. But the point is, she didn't do anything. But then somebody in a medical profession can say, well, she's not mentally capable of taking care of herself. She's mentally defective. So are we going to find out she's mentally defective? That's why she went along with everything. So I'm going to say, no, I don't want to hear that. Because I had almost a little bit of empathy for her yesterday listening to her talk. But then once I hear the psychiatrist talk, you start saying to yourself, she's got to own her part. Because she says briefly, oh, yeah, I did feel bad for her. Yeah, but you didn't call 911. And that's what people don't seem to understand about life. When you become an adult, people don't have to feel sorry for you, what happened to you as a kid. Somebody beat you up, somebody was abusive to you, somebody molested you, hurt you. You're grown. Now people want you to act like an adult. But sometimes you can't because you don't got the tools to act like an adult. You got to wean your way into adulthood. Because as you see, he's 50-something years old. Look at him. He's a misfit. So he didn't ever grow up. Do you see how the balance weighs? He's old enough to be her father, but he's a menace. She's 20-something years old, but lost as well. So 2 ships passed in the night, and one's old enough to be the other one's parent. But they're both defunct, defective, tortured. She's carrying baggage, more than likely. So was he. But he knew better. And by law, some will say the same for Rebecca Dishman.
Challenging life for Rebecca Dishman, but then she's hooked up with Sean Finnegan, and we see what she ends up being a part of here, because she's admitted it all and is now testifying against it. But what exactly is the nature of the relationship between Rebecca Dishman and Sean Finnegan? I want you to take a listen as she describes when they first met and how their relationship sort of evolved.
I had met Sean on Facebook and decided to move in with him 2 weeks after meeting him. He convinced me.
So how did you feel about trying to move in with Sean?
At the beginning, I felt, comfort and safe.
Okay. And you said that he had convinced you to move in. Could you tell us about that, please?
Like, the first text that I recall is he was telling me that he wanted me to move in with him, that he wanted me to live with him and be his girl.
So what were things like when you moved in?
The first couple weeks were okay, and I went to go take a shower, and that was our first argument. He pushed me, and I ended up cutting my leg pretty bad, and that led to my first punishment. My ex had messaged me and was texting explicit messages, and it led to him getting angry with me and shoving me in the shower, which I cut my leg and fell.
See, this is where this is crazy. She never had a phone, allegedly, while living with him, supposedly. So the ex is texting her, obviously through his phone, if she didn't have her own phone. So what phone was the ex texting her on? Because he had just seen the text in order to get mad at her to push her for her to cut her leg. So how did she cut her leg? Because I'm trying to figure out, if you fall in your house Where would you fall to get cut? Help me understand. They don't even elaborate. So was she using his phone, reaching out to other people, and then that means you'd have to give it the phone number, because this don't really make sense. If she didn't ever have a phone, then how did the ex message her? I'll wait. How did he message her? And you shouldn't have used that man's number to reach out to another ex, knowing they could call back or message back and say anything that would be derogatory or deemed salacious. See, this makes no sense. So is she that dense she don't understand that? Because she was using other people's phones, neighbors' phones, to message people on, such as, I guess, through Messenger or whatever. This lets you know she's not bright. There's something missing upstairs. Because you don't go use somebody's phone and know there's a chance that somebody could send something back that you don't want that person to see, but it's on their phone, so they're going to see it. This is crazy.
Is that the only time something like that happened?
No.
Tell us about the next time you were called.
Later, when I got out of the shower, he told me that, you know, he wasn't happy with me, and there was consequences to that. Like, I had to have sex with him, and he tied my hands to the bed and scratched me down my back and
See what I'm saying?
made me bleed.
This is what he does, what he did. You do something he doesn't like, you said something he doesn't like, he punishes you with sex, oral sex, regular sex, violent sex, torture you, cut you. We hear that he cut her on the inside of her legs. I think they said she's a cutter too. So he probably felt like, well, you cut yourself anyway. You don't mind me cutting on you. See how your vices can be turned against you? See, you got to learn people. You got to know when to say, okay, you know what? They know my secrets. They know my vices, and they're using them against me. I got to get the hell away from this person. He's a stalker. He's a stalker. He's a watcher. You can best believe he watched Facebook and saw what he wanted in her. She's not the prettiest girl in the world, but nonetheless, he saw something in her. She was heavier at the time when he met her. Blue, green hair, not very attractive at all, but that's what he was into, obviously. Dope head, dope fiend. I also like to know if she used any type of hardcore drugs, because that's what he was into. Jennifer was into drugs, drinking. She was out here on the street living. So what did she see in him? Because he was a doper, okay? A sadist and a doper. What do you want with an old man who gets high on drugs? What the fuck can he do for you? He's got you living in this 2-bedroom ass duplex with his crazy ass mama. She's sitting there listening to all this shit, and ain't nobody gonna tell me that old woman didn't hear everything that was going on. Hell yeah, she heard everything, and she was down with it. How about that? For all we know, he may have had some sexual relationships with his mama, because he learning this from some prior bingo card. Because you don't wake up, like the psychiatrist said, you don't wake up and start torturing people, cutting off body parts, because you've been doing this. You've been attracted to this. That's why you found somebody that you could play funny games with, kill them, put them in a freezer, and they'll never go out there and tell on you. Because somebody got away, and that's that lady from Blount County. She was from Knoxville. She went out there to Blount County to his house, and he locked her, pinned her up in there. He wouldn't let her out. So he knew, next time I do this, she won't get away, whoever she is. Nobody's going to go tell on me again. Until this story. He stupidly had a cohort who waited almost a year to run away from him, and she told the story.
Now, how would you consider the dynamic of your relationship? Who's in charge?
Sean.
And you had said you did something that made him unhappy.
Yes.
And that there were consequences. He told you there were consequences. Was that a normal part of your relationship with Sean Finnegan?
I didn't know that it would come to that extent. Like,
And I know
it
the
would be,
area. I know this
kinky
area.
sex, but I didn't think it would be violent as it was.
Trust me. Queen knows the area very well. Knows the person that lives right there where this crime took place. And they're just as, I'm going to say it, just as a dodo bird like she is. Nobody said nothing when they heard the woman screaming. I believe it's Christmas time when the woman was screaming. The person I talked to who lived right there nearby, they didn't get up to look out the window to see who it was or nothing. I said, well, thank your damn good neighbors. It's ridiculous. Living around with fucking trash. Nobody gives a fuck about nothing.
Like punishment
Excuse me,
for her
people don't give a
is
fuck
to
about
have
nothing.
sex with him. That is, I mean, that to me, that speaks volumes about the nature of this relationship.
Exactly. And it sounds like this pattern was established very early on in the relationship. And I think there were people who were talking soon after his arrest that there was some kind of a master-servant relationship that was established between the two of them. And he very, very quickly asserted his dominance, which of course is easy to do when you are older, when you have the power because she's moving into your place. And I think when he knew that she didn't have many other great options at the time. And as she's speaking about this, you can see that there was a sense of powerlessness, but also when you think about how young she was 22 or so when the arrest, or at least the torture of Jennifer and then the eventual killing happened. You know, at that time in your mindset, you are still thinking about things like punishment and consequence, because when you were a child, it's like, okay, you got put on a timeout. It's things like that, except it just gradually got worse and more depraved, and there was always a physical abuse element involved as well as a mental abuse element.
Bobby, what are your thoughts about, you come across someone like this, right? Law enforcement does, and you see his age, and you see what he was, what you believe he did. Does the investigation include trying to figure out if there are other victims out there, other people who maybe were homeless, that there weren't necessarily people looking for them? And you know, I can't imagine this would be the first time.
Absolutely, you do. You have one team that works with the prosecutors on this particular case because you need to move this case along in court, and there are deadlines and there are hearings. And then you have another part of your team looking at this guy's background. This is probably not the first time he's done it, so let's look where he's lived. Let's look at missing persons. Let's look who he's worked with, who he's associated with, who he socialized with. He met her on his Facebook page, so I would look at his Facebook pretty closely, and things like that. Sure, you have a whole team that would delve into this background, because at his age and his ability to so quickly dominate her and get her into the fold and become like a psychological prisoner, I would seriously doubt whether she's the first one that ever fell under this type of situation with him.
Siobhan Scott, what are your thoughts about the nature of this relationship?
You know, I see a young woman, again, very young, 22. He was 52. She clearly did not come from an optimal, ideal background, and we don't know the extent of that. But it sure looks like a trauma bond. She said her words were comfort and safety, and that's what she was looking for, and that's what he offered her initially. And so he was also a monster. He hurt her. He did terrible things to her, unspeakable things. He defecated on her. My God, the shame, you know. And yet he bought her new glasses and he fed her, and at times he made her feel loved. And this is a horrendous kind of relationship for a young woman to be stuck.
Let's look at the two at the time of arrest. Thank you for joining me. Hold on, everybody. Okay. So you can get a glimpse. Suspect. Heavier. She was heavier. Now, she's smaller. Probably worried herself sick in jail, realizing she's never going to get out. Never going to be free. Hair very thin, because it was thinner before.
Today I went on the best first date of my
Sorry about that, everybody. See how things change. She was a heavier young lady. Oh, Lordy, Lordy, Lordy.
Exactly. And it sounds like this pattern was established very early on in the relationship. And I think there were people who were talking soon after his arrest that there was some kind of a master-servant relationship that was established between the two of them. And he very, very quickly asserted his dominance, which of course is easy to do when you are older, when you have the power because she's moving into your place. And I think when he knew that she didn't have many other great options at the time. And as she's speaking about this, you can see that there was a sense of powerlessness, but also when you think about how young she was 22 or so when the arrest, or at least the torture of Jennifer and then the eventual killing happened. You know, at that time in your mindset, you are still thinking about things like punishment and consequence, because when you are a child, it's like, okay, you got put on a timeout. It's things like that, except it just gradually got worse and more depraved, and there was always a physical abuse element involved as well as a mental abuse element.
Bobby, what are your thoughts about, you come across someone like this, right? Law enforcement does, and you see his age, and you see what he was, what you believe he did. Does the investigation include trying to figure out if there are other victims out there, other people who maybe were homeless, that there weren't necessarily people looking for them? And you know, I can't imagine this would be the first time.
Absolutely, you do. You have one team that works with the prosecutors on this particular case because you need to move this case along in court, and there are deadlines and there are hearings. And then you have another part of your team looking at this guy's background. This is probably not the first time he's done it, so let's look where he's lived. Let's look at missing persons. Let's look who he's worked with, who he's associated with, who he's socialized with. He met her on his Facebook page, so his Facebook pretty closely, and things like that. Sure, you have a whole team that would delve into this background, because at his age and his ability to so quickly dominate her and get her into the fold and become like a psychological prisoner, I would seriously doubt whether she's the first one that ever fell under this type of situation with him.
Exactly.
Siobhan Scott, what are your thoughts about the nature of this relationship?
You know, I see a young woman, again, very young, 22. He was 52. She clearly did not come from an optimal, ideal background, and we don't know the extent of that.
Right.
But it sure looks like a trauma bond. She said her words were comfort and safety, and that's what she was looking for, and that's what he offered her initially. And so he was also a monster. He hurt her. He did terrible things to her, unspeakable things. He defecated on her. My God, the shame, you know. And yet he bought her new glasses, and he fed her, and at times he made her feel loved. And this is a horrendous kind of relationship for a young woman to be stuck in.
I want to play one more part of her testimony and pay close attention to the end here.
Excuse me.
When you say you didn't expect it to be, as harsh or as aggressive, what kind of things would he do then as punishment?
Anywhere from putting me in a dog cage and urinating on me and climaxing, defecating on me, chaining me up with a dog chain, using box cutters on me, sodomizing me, using torch ladders on me, just very violent punishments.
And I understand this is probably hard to talk about, but when you say using these things on you, what do you mean he was using them for? What was he doing?
For his sexual gratification.
Okay.
So she realized
So
he
you
got off
say
on it
he
sexually.
used chains on you.
Yes.
How specifically were they used on you?
It was wrapped around my neck with a padlock, and he made me walk on all fours and act like a dog.
Okay. And the same thing, he put you in the dog cage?
Yes.
Okay. You said he used a box cutter?
Yes.
How did he use that?
On my inner thighs and cut.
What kind of torch?
A torch lighter.
Like a torch lighter?
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe what that looks like? How is that different than like a cigarette lighter?
It's usually used
Pilot
for
lighter, girl.
burning grills and
Okay.
other things like that.
You know what a
And
pilot
what would
lighter
he do
is?
with that?
He made me perform oral sex on him, and he had his leg over my throat and was burning my shoulder at the time.
Did you love him?
Yes.
Do you still love him?
Yes.
Wow. Still loves him.
Were these punishments he did and the things you described as harsh or aggressive, did those continue for your whole relationship?
Yes. And they continue to get worse.
Dr. Judy Ho, she still loves him.
Yeah. And Sean had a response to that. He kind of nodded, almost like, yeah.
He did. Yeah.
Still got her.
He had a light nod when
Yeah,
she
this
said
is
that.
so sad. And you know what makes me think of is essentially he needed more and more depravity, more violence to get off.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually it just escalated to a point where they had to kill somebody, right, for him to really get off. It wasn't enough that he had his girlfriend at home that he was torturing every day, increasingly worse each time. He had to keep going. It was keep upping the ante. And you do see this sometimes. It's almost like somebody who was addicted. They have to get more and more of the substance that they're addicted to satisfy their
But it's never going to be enough.
It's a little bit like that with this level of deviancy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this trial's continuing tomorrow here on Court TV. Big thank you. I know it wasn't easy, but we appreciate you putting some perspective and analysis and understanding for all this. Dr. Judy Ho, Bobby Chacon, and Siobhan Scott. We will see you again soon.
Court TV was the source of that information. Well said by Miss Ho. Keep going, thinking you're gonna get more out of whatever you're doing. But see, that's the thing my father taught me many moons ago. He was telling me about the reason why people get high on drugs. Of course, he never used, but he saw what people were going through back in those days, 90s or whatever, chasing drugs. And he said the reason why they're getting high, they can't stop getting high, is because they're trying to get the high they got the first time. And it makes sense, because you can't get any higher. You take your first hit of crack, heroin, you like that feeling. But the point is, you can't get it back. So that's what you're searching for. It's that ultimate high. You want to get the first high back, but you can't get it back. And that's something a drug addict has never realized. I am chasing the high I originally got first time I tried drugs. This is no different. You're just doing all these things, beating, torturing, cutting the woman. It ain't enough. He already had her. Wasn't enough. What he tell her, I ain't pleased with you. Now, go get somebody else months later. Go get her, tie her up, cut her up, do all these nasty things to her. She ain't down with whatever they're trying to do. Choke her, kill her. That ain't enough. Put her in a freezer, clean her, bag her up, and she's dead. And he still ain't satisfied. I gotta open this freezer up. I gotta look, masturbate. That ain't enough. Hell, I'll cut her frozen. Did you hear what I said? Cut her nose off. Cut the breast nipple off. She's already dead. Cold, frozen, however it goes. Ain't enough still. Do you see what I'm saying? Look at the stages he's gone through to get that high, sexual high, because there are a lot of men who equate violence with sex, some women too, that they get off the rougher the sex, the choking, the strangling, the suffocation, we've heard all these type of weird things people like to do sexually to get off. He's that person. He gets off on violence with sex. He interchanges it, sex with violence, violence with sex. He don't get his way with you. Okay, come here. Put your head in my crotch. Let me rub you hard so you can get off. He would never be satisfied. That's why a lot of men go out here and keep picking up different women, as we call it in the street, strange. He got to get him some strange because he ain't satisfied with her. And her over here could be doing everything that he says he likes, but it ain't enough because he's looking for some type of high, some type of sick high he just can't fulfill. Not factor in a person who wants to put violence in with the sexual high. Oh, I can't get off on no regular sex. I can't get off on just no standard sex. No, I gotta get some extra stuff thrown in there. But don't you see, in this situation, it ain't enough. It ain't enough with dog collars, peeing, defecating, cutting, strangulation, even death was not enough for Sean Finnegan. Because he still got to open the freezer door and ejaculate to a frozen body. Imagine how many times he did that from the moment they put her in the freezer, moved the freezer upstairs to his bedroom, put that in his closet, ran it with an extension cord. How many times do you think he opened that door and masturbated to a frozen Jennifer Paxton? You think about that. Even death was not enough to satisfy his urges, this deviance that was in his head. He still was messing with a corpse. And we've heard this with Ted Bundy, that he would go back out into the wilderness and masturbate and fondle a woman he had murdered. Are you hearing what I'm saying to you? So even the act itself, the fantasizing, because you got to fantasize first. Oh, I want to do this, I want to do this. And then you get the person and you do all these nasty, filthy things to him alive and dead, and you still ain't satisfied. So now you got to go back and play with the dead. There ain't nothing left but a new victim. And I won't doubt there's possibly somebody else out there who might be missing. So they need to start checking people who are missing. Anybody who's had contact with Sean Finnegan, yeah, you might want to start doing that if you have not been doing that, law enforcement, because we may have some other women out here who have met a terrible fate. And see, what's baffling about this story is he had a car, because he had to be able to get to work, to go to work in North Knoxville on Merchants. So he had to drive. Why didn't he dispose of this woman's body? Why did he keep her body in that freezer? And how long was he going to keep her body in that freezer? 8 months. And had this girl never told, she'd probably still be in there right now. That's the reason why they moved the freezer, because they had people coming and going, crashing at the house. So he said he didn't want anybody opening that freezer. I guess not. That's what Rebecca said. Don't want nobody opening it up and see her in there. Hell, the type of friends they had, hell, they might have never said nothing. Not trying to be nasty, but allegedly she told this mahogany girl 3 times that the woman was in the freezer and she didn't do anything. So how do I know that somebody else wouldn't come along and open the damn freezer and see her in there and be like, oh, okay, pass me a beer. Because you have sick people like that. And we can't say that they're not, because Rebecca is one of them. And she sat right in the court yesterday and said, I still love him. Did you hear that? I still love him. So although she left him, tried to go seek shelter in a shelter, fast forward 4 years being in the county jail, probably sent off to prison now, because that was last year when she got her sentence, life without parole. plus 50 years. She still loves him. Imagine that. 4 years later, incarcerated, got a life sentence, and goes to court to testify against her lover, ex-lover, and still says she loves him after all he's done to her and what he's done to Jennifer Paxton. That's some deep shit. I'm going to take you to one of my videos that I showed last night on the live stream. Just briefly show you the house where I went to the crime scene a few years ago. One second, everybody. Go to my community page if you want to watch that video in its entirety. I do know the general area where this crime took place. I do know one of the neighbors that sits feet away from the crime scene. And that's a whole nother subject there. We're not even about to get into that. I don't want to get started because this woman should have gotten the help. If anything, Rebecca should have told that she was in there. And we wouldn't be talking about her today. That's why nobody gives a fuck about anything. It's the world we live in. I want you to look at the judge's face. His face in court yesterday. I took another picture too. This is how the judge has been looking in court. He smiled once today. I saw him smile today. But this is how the judge has been looking in court. Here's the video, if you want to check it out, of the crime scene. This is my older content. House of Horrors, Oak Ridge, Tennessee, woman tortured. Let's go into the belly of the beast. Hello, everybody. This is Everyday Shenanigans. I'm at the scene of a gruesome crime that took place over a year ago. And if you need verification for the information, WVLT is the source. Disturbing details revealed in murder trial of a couple accused of killing and dismembering Oak Ridge woman. A couple accused of first-degree murder and the death of an Oak Ridge woman found dismembered. I'm not going to play all that. You feel free to listen to that content. That's the original article pertaining to how detectives, cops came to this scene and found Jennifer Paxton in an upstairs bedroom. One of those rooms is where she was found. Windows on the bottom level. This is the door where you enter. Couch, front porch. This is an inn apartment. And all the way over there, you can't see, is another inn apartment. So it's 4 apartments total. Apartment 1, 2, then 3, and then past those bushes would be an inn apartment. That's a 1-bedroom. So these 2 doors are individual apartments, and they each have 2 bedrooms. As you see the windows on the top, we will take you around the back. And the property doesn't look any better than it did then from what we've seen on the news today. Still looks shabby. Inn apartment with a bunch of debris and shit on the porch of the inn neighbor. That's the neighbor I talked to. This neighbor here is the one I talked to at the time of me filming this video. I did not put her on camera, of course, but I'm wondering if she's still there. It's just a bit nonsense. That would be their door there where Sean lived. This is a 1-bedroom unit here. That's their door. And then that door would be where Sean, Francis, and Rebecca lived. Try to be respectful. This is a quiet street. It runs in a circle. Quiet street in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. One-way street. This is the location of the crime, where this lady came to live with these people 52-year-old man and a 22-year-old. And something jumped off to where allegedly she was beat to death. Go back. About killing Paxton. On the day of the murder, Sergeant Morris, she was instructed to lay fake reports. Dishman, he didn't know why someone would make up. During the interview, trying to show you the end apartment where I talked to the neighbor. Hold on, everybody. I'm gonna go back down. It says right here, the Knoxville Police Department was able to identify Paxton as the victim. It's a close-up. That's the door there. Couch was out there. That's a year later. Didn't look any better. Looks nasty. Right here. That's what I want you to see right there. This is the apartment of the girl who lived next door at the time. She was still living there because when I filmed the video, I'd already talked to her before doing the live stream on the scene. And she heard noises. She heard banging in the apartment and did nothing. Never knocked on the door, never banged on the wall. And I asked her, why didn't you bang on the wall? Why didn't you complain to the landlord? No answer. So this is what was going on at the time. Now, when you walk down that sidewalk past the car, you're going to come to a stop sign. At that stop sign, there'll be another building identical like this, a little better looking, and their apartments face the street. So you go up that street and you go to that stop sign, it'll be Florida Avenue. That's where she went and got help from the neighbors that were supposed to take her to the shelter when this story broke. So she could go out her back door where I just showed you. Right there. That's their back door. Behind over here are apartments that look just like this, identical building. And it faces, this back faces their back porches. That's where the other neighbors live that she went and ran and got help from to take her to the shelter. And on her way up the highways when she told the young lady Mahogany what allegedly happened in that apartment. But let her tell it. She said she told that same Mahogany 2 or 3 times about the dead woman in the apartment. So what's the truth? I don't know. I don't know. .318 East Fairview Road, Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where a woman was tortured to death for days, allegedly to a week. Don't know the exact time. Don't know if you ever get the truth. She was a mother of 7. She was on drugs. She lived her life on the street, homeless camp to homeless camp, from one side of town to the other. And now she is no longer alive. Rebecca Dishman has received a life sentence with 50 years. The 50 years is for child molestation. And now her ex-boyfriend, Sean Finnegan, is in court, Clinton, Tennessee, facing the death penalty for her murder. Will he get the death penalty? I do not know. I want to thank you all for joining me. I'll be back with more commentary pertaining to this case. This trial is allegedly going to last about 2 weeks. As you can see, that was the back end of that apartment complex. Let's see. Let's go back. So you can see the building where she got the help. See the stop sign. That building sits right there to the right. Those apartments, I think it's 302, is where Mahogany and the other guy, Colt, lived, the married couple, who she got help from. Their back doors face each other. Right there. That's the building of where the people who helped her. Thank you all so much for joining me. When I get more information, I'll be back. I'll be back live tomorrow. May go live tonight with a link in case somebody wants to come up and give their opinion pertaining to Sean Finnegan and Rebecca Dishman. Does she know right from wrong? Is she mentally defective? Weigh in. Take the polls, everybody. You've been listening to the Vault XL. Thank you.